Welcome, Train to Live podcast, episode number 4. Glad to have you guys back. How's it going, Greg?
How you doing, handsome Herbie?
Another day in paradise.
That's it.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Real quick, guys. On behalf of myself, Greg, and Rob, we want to thank everyone for making this podcast successful. The feedback has been phenomenal. It's during this trying time, the three of us got together. We talked about it. We wanted to put out quality information and make it unscripted and just make it fun. And the feedback that you guys have given us has been phenomenal. We appreciate you guys tuning in. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and then we'll talk about the upcoming raffle we have.
I was going to say, don't forget that raffle. Hey, so I was really surprised. I was really excited about bringing Rob on, back in the day. But this guy that we're bringing on tonight, I mean, you know him. We've taught with him a little bit. Herbie brought him in. I went to one of his classes probably 12, 14 years ago, and search and rescue class. And he absolutely blew my mind with how humble and calm and everything he was that was going on. It was at FDIC. It was so good that I went with the Palm Beach County Fools and our training department, and we brought him to our department for 7 days, and he taught search and rescue. So meanwhile, this was about 12 years ago. People are still talking about it, that class, to this day. And then a few years ago, we brought him in, which was the 10-year anniversary. We brought him in again. And remember, he did all the search class, tick orientation. We were down in the basement. And guys, like, their mind was blown, man. It was good. And not to mention, he's so humble and like, he does this a lot. And when he told me back in the day, he was just like, listen, man, I appreciate everything you guys do on the other department. He goes, but I'm a search and rescue specialist. That's what I do. So to hear about search and rescue and just fire in general, I mean, he was in New York on a rescue company. He'll get into all that. But just to hear the search and rescue stuff and how calm and his little techniques, I feel pumped. I think he's changed a lot of things the way I do stuff today as much as I could.
He is a wealth of knowledge. It is a honor to have him on. It's an honor for him to take his time out of his day to sit here and talk with us. And before we introduce him, I wanted to let you guys know we partnered up with our sponsors, IDLH Apparel. They're going to be giving us some stuff for the raffle for you guys. Nozzleman Leather, they're going to do a custom radio strap for you guys. So we're going to put out all that information here this week. So stay tuned for that. Breach Point USAR is going to throw in a shirt and some stickers for you guys as well. So we're going to do a raffle. It's just we're just trying to get the information out, trying to build the podcast and build this community up. So with that being said, I think now is the best time than ever to let everyone know that Rob is going to be a permanent fixture here on the Train to Live podcast with us.
You're muted, Rob. You're muted.
All right, so I'm off the podcast. I messed up.
Hey, that quick? You just got fired.
Just got fired. I sucked again. So, hey, honestly, I'm genuinely and professionally and personally thankful. This opportunity was unexpected, and I'm going to be in total free fall with you guys. This has been extremely rewarding, being able to sit here, talk shop with two of my friends, and get such positive feedback from the Brotherhood. It's been nothing but short of unexpected and incredibly fruitful. As far as I'm concerned, I'm super grateful for you guys and the Train to Live podcast and everybody that's watching and listening. And I'm looking forward to doing this many, many more times with you guys. Thanks again.
Hey, Rob, glad to have you, man. It's Herbie brought it up to me, and it was I think it was well against my better judgment to have you on here. But it took literally 10 seconds, and I was like, absolutely, man. It's a good thing.
Well, I don't blame you. I got headphones and everything because I feel official.
You're amazing, and your hair is fantastic today.
Thanks, bud.
All right.
Yours is nice.
So without further ado, guys, we want to sit here and introduce our first guest, Dan Barron. He grew up in central Massachusetts. He's been married for 27 years. He has 2 daughters. He did 2 years in corrections. He did 4 years as EMT paramedic, 2 years in the private company, 2 years at Fall River Fire. He was a firefighter EMT for 6 years at Milwaukee Fire Department. He did 17 years at FDNY and 14 years were on the rescue. He retired in 2016. So with further ado, let's introduce Dan Barron himself.
Hey guys, good to see you.
How's it going, Dan?
Welcome, Danny.
It's going very well.
Welcome, sir.
Going well. It's a privilege to be here. You guys are gentlemen. I always enjoy when we get together and when we have a chance to talk. So I'm really honored and excited to be here.
Glad to have you, man.
It's a pleasure. With that being said, as usual, let's do our cheers.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
Swallow.
Oh, that's good.
Delicious.
Danny, you look good, man.
Thanks. It's it's the back is shot and the lungs are getting worse, so it's not easy to stay in shape, but we do what we can,
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, we miss you out teaching with us and chumming it up with the guys and telling your stories and using your terminology from the Northeast. That's always kind of intriguing to us.
Yeah,
but
funny words like snow.
Yes.
Snow, cold, those type of words. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Well, one other word.
Seasons.
One other word before we start, because I know you'll probably end up using it 1 or 2 times, and I always kind of forget the definition of it. So I want to make sure everyone knows. Let me get this straight here. I wrote it down. Douchebaggery. So if you can, when you use that, if you can make sure that we know the definition, then we'll be good.
Very good. Very good.
All right,
that comes from the circle, and I think we're probably going to touch on that.
We are going to touch on that. Hey, Herbie hates the circle for the most part. Tell him, Herb, the table.
The weak are not welcome.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Fired already, Dan. All right. I see where this is going.
Hey, Danny, go easy on him. He's in the EOC now.
Oh.
Yeah. I've been temporarily reassigned to 40 hours, so it's
temporarily
EOC. Well, that's good. If you guys need him to call a source sucker or something for a trench job or something really important.
Exactly.
Nice. All right. This is starting off nicely.
That's what our OEM guys do for us.
That's definitely her, but he comes down, and he hits our snacks once in a while. But we go easy on him.
Yeah.
Very
Once
nice.
a brother, always a brother.
So, hey, Dan, how's your daughters doing? I know last time we spoke, you were super. You couldn't say enough about your daughters. It was
Yeah, I'm very proud of them. It's been a long time since that you guys have been around in the story, But Kelsey's a senior at Siena College, which is just above Albany in New York. She's studying administration type stuff and well-being for the students, and she started a program on campus that looks after the kids' mental health. And who knew how important it would be? They kind of rolled out a pilot last year, and now this year, bang, with COVID, they got kids isolated for 2 weeks because they come from a hot spot or out of the country. And these other kids are on campus trying to run programs for them and keep them entertained and keep their head in the game. So I'm very proud of her, for that kind of stuff that she's doing. She's awesome. Good. And Allie went to community college. We thought she was going to be a graphic designer, computer type stuff. She's a real tech whiz. And man, she just can't get away from the horses. She's back working in a couple barns, and that's her love. So I'm just glad that they're doing what they love.
That's awesome, man. How's before we start diving in, I know Rob, myself, and Greg, we got a ton of questions we want to get to you. It's always a pleasure when we get a chance to sit here and just talk with you. You've seen things that some of us will never see ever in our career. But before we go to that, how's retirement treating you? Is it as good as they actually say it is?
It is good. It is good. In the pre-show we were talking, and I mentioned I'd go back tomorrow if I thought I could do the job still. However, retirement doesn't suck. I got to tell you, it really doesn't. I can handle 9 holes of golf, and that's great. And we're on a lake with a boat, and we spend a lot of time on the water. So retirement is treating me well.
Very
Thanks
nice.
for asking.
All right. Well, let's kick it off. I know when we sat here, myself and Greg, we actually sat down and we were sitting there talking. We literally, between the three of us, we probably had over 100 questions we wanted to ask you.
Okay.
And there was, we would sit there and just randomly text. We were texting each other at 1 o'clock in the morning, just like, hey, what do you think about this? And it's like we always do. We just want to keep it kind of unscripted, and just like we're at the firehouse at the bar, we're just sitting there, a bunch of brothers talking shop.
All right.
So we'll start off with Rob. Rob, go ahead and let's just dive into it. Let's have fun with it. And then I also got the live comments up on the side, so when some guys chime in, I'll post it out here for us, and that'll be it. It'll be too easy.
Good. Now, if we're going to go kitchen table, I just have to warn you, because I always see guys cringe when I'm in the South, but I might curse.
It's the only way we'll have it.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have it any other way, Dan.
Okay. All right. You
All right,
guys
so
are gentlemen in
go
the
ahead.
South.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. The South stops like somewhere around the Orlando area. And then we got what we got down here. I don't know what you would call this. But yeah, I'm going to get right into it. And let's start talking a little bit about firehouse culture and the importance of it. We all know the importance of a healthy firehouse culture. We've talked about it in previous episodes. It's a conversation that goes back and forth, and it's generational. So, the guys from your era have an expectation in culture. The guys from our era have an expectation in culture. Now we have all these new kids that come in on the job the last, 10, 15 years, and they have an expectation as far as what they want to see and environment they want to work in. In your experience, what's your definition of a good, healthy firehouse culture, and how do you create that environment without being a company officer?
Well, I wrote an outline for a class for FDIC called Leadership on the Back Step. And it starts with the senior guys. And really, in FDNY, I don't know if you know this, but we're in different unions. The fireman's rank is its own union, and the officer's rank is its own union. So we're brothers and we work together and all that, but we truly are separate. And stuff that goes in the firehouse, we had a problem for a little while where it was going upstairs too much, and the officers were getting too involved. A lot of stuff really should be handled by the men and by the senior men. The senior guys, they set the policies for the house. They set the tone for the house. They lead the drills. The officers come down. We actually invite the officer to the drill. The senior guys are really the guys that run the drill, and that's the way it has to be. The senior guys pulling everybody else along. That to me is the healthiest firehouse culture. It gets unhealthy when I'll just give you an example, and it's just because we were housed with an engine. So you had Rescue 5 with guys that SOC, Special Operations Command policy was you couldn't apply to come into a rescue without 5 years, and generally that was truck company experience. So we had guys, all full paid guys, because it takes 5 years to get to full pay. Generally, we're guys with families. We're older. We're more experienced and seasoned. And then in the engine, you had them getting 2 and 3 probies out of every class, and their senior guy wasn't on the job for the trade center. And they had a hard time because they didn't have the leadership that they needed, and the guys were they were young on the job. They were young and inexperienced themselves, so it was really hard for them to step up and pull the other guys along. So you had they were trying to do things like majority rules and that kind of stuff, and we were like, yo guys, it's not a democracy. We're not taking votes. Actually, we don't give a shit. We don't really give a shit what you think. This is the way it's happening. We're just giving you the courtesy of letting you know what's going to happen. So I know, we're going to talk about young guys coming in and that. I'll tell you, my first day in the rescue, the senior guy on the back step just said, "Hey, just keep your mouth shut." So okay, that's it. It's I'm there to learn. So firehouse culture, it starts with the senior men. It's got to be the clear to the guys of what direction we're going in and what kind of tone we're going to set in the house, and it's got to stay clear of the officers. Just because you put the officer in a spot where he might have to react to something, you're not supposed to be hazing. You're not supposed to be, talking dirty or anything in the firehouse. If that gets to the office, you kind of put him in the position. So if you really want to take care of your boss, you wouldn't put him in that position. You keep that stuff downstairs, as we say. So
awesome. That's a great message. It's a great message. A lot of the guys down here in South Florida is very company officer driven, our culture. Our firehouses are led by the guys with the bugles. We do have our senior men, but that senior men depends on that empowering and that investment from his company officer to be the senior man. So to hear that up north, it works the other way around, where you guys are inviting your company officers to your drills being run by your senior man. That's very refreshing to hear, because our senior men down here depend on the company officer to A, recognize that he doesn't know everything, and B, to recognize the importance of a senior man who chose not to promote and instead became a master in his craft, whether it's forcing or stretching or searching.
Yeah. Well, and then on the flip side of that too, you have the company officers that move up so quick that they're really not sure of what's going on, so they do it to micromanage, when realistically half the crew or the senior man there can actually run the show without a doubt. And then it goes into, I got to make the decision, I got to do this, which it's just proving that you're very unsure of yourself and your skill set. You know what I mean? So it definitely goes both ways. That's a great message, Danny.
Yeah. Now there's a drill schedule comes out in the department orders. So every month, every day of every month, you actually have something that you're supposed to be drilling on as an engine or a truck. And a lot of it is mandated crap and stuff that the guys aren't interested in. A lot of that's done by the company officer, and where the places I've worked, they take care of it at the meal. And, if the chief wants to come by and join in the drill while the guys are prepping the meal, all right, we'll cover the mandated stuff. We'll take care of the stuff, the crap we got to take care of. But the nuts and bolts stuff, that's senior man stuff.
Love it.
It's an important job, man, without a doubt.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, just, to get very personal, I looked very forward to that position. I elected not to promote, like Rob said, and I was looking forward to getting into that position in Rescue 5, where you had the time there and you were a seated chauffeur, and the guys came to you for those decisions, and you set the tone. And I got hurt, and it happened right before that would have happened for me. So so I missed out on that. So most of the stuff I'm telling you is, you know, if I was the senior man, or from guys that I've learned from, just like this podcast or any teaching, you know, I've never taught anything that I've made up. I've learned it from somebody else and just passed it on. I have a picture that I show in some of my classes of a picture of the back of Rescue 5, and we have a whiteboard, and the officer is going over a fire that we had been to, and we happen to have a deputy in quarters. So the officer and the deputy are talking, and all the guys are sitting around in the circle, and we're basically rehashing the fire. We're hot washing it, right? Well, in that picture, there's two guys with 30 years. There's a guy with 25 years. The boss has got 30 years. The chief's got 35 years. And they're still going over it. You know, we're still passing it on to the next guys. And that picture happened at, you know, Change of Tours. So we're talking to the guys coming in and the junior guys. This is what happened. This is where this guy went. You know, that's how it gets passed on. And great things like this.
That's
I feel like that's forgotten a little bit too, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys, you know, if guys aren't going to fires and they're going to say they're going to make a meal, I used to say, if all you're going to do in your day is make a meal, the meal becomes the most important thing in your day. So that's all you talk about. That's what you're concerned about. That's what you consume your day with. If you have a drill set up, if your senior man takes the lead and says, listen, we're going to do this. We're going to go out and we're going to stretch. We have a tenement on the other side of the highway. It takes 16 lengths to get it to the top floor. We're going to go and we're going to stretch at least through the lobby. And you know, you guys can see what it takes to estimate that stretch. And then we'll get the meal. Well, that drill then, that becomes the most important thing those guys are going to do that day. And that's what they talk about. That's what they change tours with is, hey, we did this today. We were over at Park Hill and we stretched through the lobby. And man, you know, it takes 16 lengths to get to the top floor, you know, instead of, hey, there's pasta in the fridge. Come on, guys. Come on.
You know, I think
better stuff than that.
I think I'm I think I'm a little guilty of that too in the morning of, you know, you do your pass down, you're like, hey man, we had a good little fire, we had a nice extrication, you know, pin, something like that, and not really going into it because we do have a young department. And like I said, I think as a captain in this station, I think I'm a little guilty is not going in there and basically telling my relief. I feel like I do okay with my crew, and I feel like my crew gives good feedback, like in the house. But I think in the, you know, the changeover in the morning from different shifts, I think, I think me personally, I appreciate that. I think I'm probably going to work on that a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah. If you know how it goes, you got A, B, and C shift. A and C shift are going to all the fires, and B shift is cleaning the firehouse. You know, they're just they have a month with nothing. Well, if you guys, if at the change of tours, those guys get made a little part of it, they get to share in that fire that you guys had. You know, that goes a long way to keeping them interested, keeping them involved. It motivates them to drill, and you know, we could be going next. Not, there's no fucking way we're going to a fire this month.
Right.
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
It is absolutely. And hey, it's not the guy's fault that there aren't fires. It's nobody's fault. Exactly. I had the benefit of going to work and expecting to go to a fire or two, you know, or whatever we had for the tour, and I had that benefit. There's a lot of guys that don't have that. So what do you interest them with? Well, you got to drill. You have to drill. practice, make them the best firemen there that they can be.
That was one of the most interesting things you said to me. You're like, you're like, I'm probably on the slowest rescue company in New York City, but I'm almost guaranteed to go to a working fire and search a building every day. I was like, man, that's the world I want to live in.
Me too.
Right. And regarding search, I had that benefit because of the way we operated. If we get in first or second due, we operate as a truck company, and first and second due trucks search. And if we get in after that and the chief is in, he assigns us something to do, and it's usually to search. So we're professional searchers of fire buildings, basically. That was our day at the office.
Well, you brought up search. I mean, Herbie, you want to go right into that, or do you have something?
No, hey, let's run with it.
All right, I'm in. You brought it up, Danny. You brought the magic word up. I've been gnawing at the bit for this. So so give everybody a rundown when your position on Rescue Company 5. What would you do? Let's call it 3-4 story. A couple times you told me you were the roof man. You went in depending where you were. So give me a rundown of like a couple. I mean, I know you can't talk about every fire, but just kind of break it down.
We had a basic plan, a setup where we called them an inside and an outside team. The outside guys were gonna vent, enter, search, or they were gonna have the floor above, depending on how we arrived in the order of companies. So the inside team was the officer and my company, and this is very company specific too. And Rescue 3, you go detailed to Rescue 3, and they have a top floor team because they're doing all 6-story tenements and high rises. So their guys, they're outside. What we have as an outside team, their guys go to the top floor and work their way down. So it's pretty rescue specific. We had an inside and outside team. The outside guys were the guys that were going to VES. The inside team would go and generally operate on the floor, the fire floor, if needed, or the floor above, depending on how we arrived and what the truck companies were doing. We're really there to fill holes, and the chauffeur, that senior guy, his assignment was to follow the primary hose line in to the seat of the fire and make sure that they were making progress on the fire. And he basically had the back of the other guys while they searched. So you could extend your search and get places where maybe if you weren't so sure that they were putting water on the fire, you wouldn't go because you knew that your chauffeur was there, making sure that the job was getting done. So, so that's a basic search operation for us.
I took something that you told me years ago, and I think I took it in your class, and then I think we were in FDIC at Claddagh, and that's really where all the deals go down. That's where you really learn stuff at the Irish Bar in Indianapolis. But so the first time we're sitting there talking, and I can't remember how it ran down, but I was probably just talking your ear off because it was kind of, we were hanging out. But you said when you went to the top floor with moderate smoke, so to speak, that you always hit your belly first, and you checked the hallway, you looked, and you hit it with a tick.
Absolutely.
All the way down to get your layout. Because if you push in halfway, you get down and it just gets real snotty or real shitty right on you quick. At least you're 3 doors in and all that. So to this day, when I go up to the top, and granted, it's probably not as many times have you been up there, but when I go up to the top, I at least get as low as I possibly can, and I take a quick scan with the tick and get a quick layout, and then go to business right from there. So
the tick is a piece of technology, and it can fail. So the best thing is to get below the smoke and get a physical picture in your mind, and then operate. And I have a great story of a guy that came in to Rescue 5 behind me. So it was my job to teach him and bring him along. And we had a fire, and we actually went to the floor above. And he had the thermal imager camera. His position that day was carrying the thermal imaging camera. So when we got to the floor, I put my face on the floor, my flashlight, and took a size up of the floor. And he actually tells a great story, but he says, there I was, I had the camera, and I looked down, and Danny's on his belly, and I'm laughing, I got the camera. He says, we get halfway through the floor, and the camera fails. He said, and I'm holding on to Danny's the back of his coat, thinking, I'm swimming in an ocean out here. I have no idea where I am. So he tells it really good. But that's a
fact, man.
There's a thing we talked about, some of the things we want to talk about, and one of the best things I ever heard was stay low. We're so encapsulated and turtled up. If you go into a fire building and you just sit there with the thermal imager and watch, you see guys on their feet searching, holding onto a wall 5 feet off the floor, walking through a fire building. And I think, gosh, where do we go wrong? There's nobody 5 feet up on that wall that you're going to save. But we're so encapsulated, they don't even feel it. The old timers, they knew to get low. That's where the good air was. That's where the visibility was. They just did it automatically. They were on their face. So I'll just throw it out there. I personally very seldom put my hood up. It's just the way it is. I know, I don't know what kind of comments will come in, but it'll definitely very rarely wore it around my neck. It was a great neck gaiter.
It's interesting too that you told me, which kind of blew my mind, because when we went teaching with you and all that kind of stuff, you're a pretty safety conscious guy. You don't want to get injured, man. I'm not saying you overdo it, but you don't need to get injured for nothing, for no reason. But you told me, sitting there and you're like, I don't have a chin strap on my helmet.
No.
And I was like, what? And I said, no, chin strap, like that goes underneath your chin. He's like, yeah, I don't wear it. That's a good story why you don't have it. Now, me personally, I still wear a chin strap, but I appreciate your story why you don't wear one.
So when I was in Milwaukee, when I was a Milwaukee fireman, ear flaps down though, collar up. I mean, I turtle up, and if we're going to, say, on Rescue 5, we're going to Coney Island and they're having trouble making a hallway because it's too hot. Well, I know I'm gonna pull my hood up before we get up there. Typical fire for me, no hood and no chin strap. And when I was a fireman in Milwaukee, we had an attic fire, and the first line got burned trying to make a push. So those guys came down, and my captain and I crawled up and took the line and started pushing through the attic. And I got hit with water with a hose line on the back of my helmet, and it flipped my helmet around and pulled it actually fell in front of my hose line, pulled my face piece off.
Oh wow.
30 feet into a well-involved attic. So I dropped to the ground, kept the nozzle open, and I yelled to my officer, my mask is off. And he just said, get out, get out. And I turned around and followed the line back to the stairs. And when I got to the back of the stairs, to the top of the stairs, by the time I got there, I was unconscious. The guys pulled me down. One of the guys hit me with an axe. I got some stitches. But and I always thought, just as a sidebar, well, I can hold my breath. I could swim the length of my pool down and back, and I can hold my breath pretty good. But carbon monoxide is not like that. It gets in and it bonds with those receptors, and forget it. It's not about holding your breath. You breathe a couple breaths of that stuff, it's poison. So I was out by the time I got to the top of the steps, and they pulled me down, and a little O2, and I was fine. But and it turned out in the end, my captain was operating the other hose line. It took him a while to admit that, but so he's the one that put me in peril. That's what I said. I said, "Geez, Cap, I love you, but you put me in peril." Jesus.
Great.
So yeah, I'm not a chin strap guy, but yes, I'm all about safety. Maybe that's absolutely opposite what I'm saying, because I don't wear the chin strap and the hood. But
I didn't mean to out you, Dan.
no, that's okay. That's okay. I'm out, man.
Yeah, you don't care.
No. But and I'm not saying like I believe in Rome. You have to do what the Romans do. So if in your department everybody wears their hood and they wear their chin strap, and that's the way you're trained, that's the way you have to operate. I heard a very good thing, and it might have been at FDIC at a dinner. We were eating with a bunch of instructors, and the guy said, "Listen, I know we're encapsulated, we're turtled up. Nobody can feel the heat. You don't know what's going on around you. Well, guess what? That's the way it is, and that's the way you have to learn to operate." So, I mean, I took that to be a pretty good statement. That's the way your department wants you working. That's the way you have to operate. So, I know guys that leave a glove off. I know guys that don't put their wristlet in on one sleeve so that they can expose a wrist and see how hot it's getting. If you're starting to feel the heat through the stitching in your turnout coat, it's too hot. It's just about too late. I hope you're not too deep, because it's about to flash over. So that's all I have to say about that. I don't want to get too crazy with the hood and stuff. I think that we get ourselves in bad situations sometimes because we're so encapsulated. I think guys get too deep.
That's a fair statement.
I agree.
It's a very, very fair statement.
Yeah.
All right, someone else asked a search question. I feel like I'm wearing you guys out.
Go ahead, Herb.
All right, so we got a comment over here from Brandon. He wanted to know, Dan, do you think we can safety ourselves into bad situations?
Yeah. Like I said, I think that encapsulation is it's just a little too much. I think it's great that my gear can withstand 1,200 degrees. I think that's great, but I'm going to boil inside it. I'm going to look like a lobster.
Yeah.
So that's all terrific that you got me gear that can do that for me. But it gets saturated with heat, and I'm in trouble. I found it very interesting. I went to outside of Vegas for radiation training, and I got to talking with a guy from Metro Vegas. I can't remember their county, but he was with the county, and he was a guy that did purchasing. So we went out to dinner, and we were talking, and he talked about the Northeast buys gear that insulates firemen from heat. So we have these layers of insulation and air that keep us away from the heat. Out in the West, like in Vegas, they buy gear that reflects the heat. So their gear is a lot lighter, and they don't get heat saturated like we do in the Northeast. I don't know. I can't speak about Florida, what you guys are doing. But it made a lot of sense to me, because I've we've been there where man, you're outside and you're like, holy shit, I'm still burning up. Your gear is heat saturated. Clark County, thank you. You're right. Yeah. So I found that very interesting. We wear these heavy suits of armor up in the Northeast, man. And the protection is great, but I think we definitely can go too deep.
That's a big ARF thing, where they wear their proximity suits because they want to reflect all the heat to kind of
right.
get the deal. That was big in the like the Navy and the Air Force, all the basically the air wings of the military, and then a lot of the airports do that. But I never knew that like municipal fire departments actually had gear that did that, like residential type, like turnout coats and stuff.
It was an education eating dinner with the guy. Yeah.
Did he buy you anything?
No. No, we were both out there on the arm. It was good enough, it was nice enough to be out there on the jobs tab, but yeah, I could talk about search all night. I think that a lot of departments they think that. Well, I asked the question: are you in a department that is a kick-ass, aggressive, interior attack fire department? You guys go in and, none of this outside stuff. You drag a line in and you put the fire out from the inside out. And I get a lot of, yeah. And I say, well, is your department known because they can search the hell out of a fire building? And I get, not really. And it's life and property. Everybody that's not on the nozzle, in my opinion, is a searcher. You should be searching the fire building. So it only takes one guy to point the nozzle. Maybe you throw a backup man there, but if the guy's a good nozzle man, if he's got some time and experience, he knows how to get himself on a door jam, or he knows where to go to absorb that back pressure. And he can put that room out, or those couple rooms. And everybody else in the building, we always say the only fireman is the engine guy, the nozzleman. He's really the only firefighter. Everybody else is a firefighter's helper. Well, I think everybody else is a searcher. Now, some departments, unfortunately, they got two guys, stretch that line in, they put the fire out, and then they walk around in the haze and trip over the body. But that's the best they can do. The first thing that has to be addressed is the fire. You have to address the fire. I always say, if you show up with water, even if it's 2.5 gallons in a pressurized extinguisher, you have to address the fire. You have to send somebody to the seat of the fire to address its intensity, how angry it is. Maybe you can isolate it. A Luan door saves 20 minutes. It's so much time if you can get a door closed. So that water has to go to the fire, but everybody else should be a searcher of that fire building. Every IDLH should have a primary and a secondary search. Every IDLH. So, I mean, that's maybe easy to say because of the personnel and the numbers that we have in New York City. I used to say some fires, we could just put enough guys in the room, everybody inhale, and we'd starve it of oxygen and put the fire out. We'd have enough guys. You'd be moving around. You'd have your hook standing there, and you'd be moving around looking for a spot to operate, and your SCBA's clanking with somebody else's SCBA or something. You just like, fuck this, man. I'm out of here. There's so many guys in here. But yeah, it's got to be searched. It's got to be searched.
Those are valid statements.
Even the engine. So go ahead,
the
Rob.
engine guys. I'm sorry. Those are valid statements because we do a lot of preaching when we do our classes, and we actually, because of South Florida, our staffing, like you mentioned, our staffing is not like it is up in the Northeast. We ain't showing up with 5 or 6 guys on a truck. You know, with a chauffeur and a company officer and 3 guys to help them get the hose to the fire. So with limited staffing and depending on our ambulances to provide the backup staffing, you know, you're gonna get 3 bodies off that ambulance that are gonna also firefight with you. Every member counts. So anytime we can get a member in a building, whether they're stretching, as long as they're not on the nozzle, like you mentioned earlier, and they're not actively fighting that fire to contain it, knock it down, and make the environment more tenable and better for us searching and the victims that may be trapped. Anybody in that building has to be conducting some form of search, even though they're not assigned search. So if I'm feeding hose in a corner, if that hose stops, I need to check my perimeter, my area, and if I have a tick, I need to get on my belly and search the area, because you know, even the data's been telling us over the last couple of years that up to 30-40% of the people that are being found in these fires are being found by the initial hose line, because that hose line's coming in the front door to the fire, the same route these people take to get out of the building when they become overwhelmed with smoke.
That's right. That's right. Which we're basically tripping over them.
Exactly.
On our way to put out the fire. And that's, you know, another reason to get water to the fire. I had a discussion with a retired battalion chief a couple of days ago, and we were talking about watching YouTube videos and watching fires on YouTube, and and how often you watch them and you just sit there and you scream at your screen, put water on it, put water on it, everything will get better. And he talked about, very candidly, he talked about being a battalion chief, how difficult it is in real time to be out front and watch guys stretch and know that the fire is doubling and wait for that real time before the guys actually get water on the seat of the fire. It was a difficult adjustment for him as a battalion chief to stand out front and watch that. One of the guys I worked with, one of the senior guys, he had a brother that was in special operations, and he used to be famous for whatever. They'd go in and they'd end up on the hose line. I don't know how. You know, a lot of complaints about the rescues is that they steal the hose line or whatever. Most of them we find laying there, but he had a history of finding a hose line, and as soon as he found the hose line, he'd get the nozzle directed at the front of the building and put water out the front windows, so the chief thought that they were hitting it. Because as soon as water comes out the front windows, the chief was like, "Oh, okay, well, guys,
that's amazing.
They're making progress." Well, that was his thing. He didn't care where the seat of the fire was. He just put water out the front windows, so they'd let him stay in there.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna try it.
Go ahead, Herbie. I know you got a nice question in there somewhere.
No, so I kind of wanted to dig into, before you went to the rescue company, what trucks were you on before then?
So I started out in Milwaukee. We talked about that. Milwaukee had a rotation system where you only got a couple of years in your company, and then they moved you. And if you were in a high intensity company, chances are your next move was going to be to a moderate or low intensity company, meaning runs and fire duty and that. So I came out of the academy into the ghetto. It was amazing. Awesome. Went to work expecting to go to fire duty. I just like putting out fire. There's nothing like it. Then I rotated down to a spot where I was first due at my house, and I lived in a very nice neighborhood. So that shows you the intensity level. But I only had to spend a year there, and then the battalion was in that quarters. So you were able to, you know, work hard and show the battalion that you were capable, and basically butter them up to move you closer to the ghetto, or on the south side we had a barrio. So I got a couple years in a truck company. I came out on twin engine. I got a couple of years in a truck company, in a moderate truck company that was I enjoyed very much. We were the company officer was willing to drill. I had a black and white senior guy. It was black and white. He lived in a black and white world. Either we were gonna drill or we weren't gonna drill. Not or we were gonna be a good company or we weren't gonna be a good company. He was a great guy to work for. Then I went back to the ghetto on a truck company where fire duty was terrific. We had a great time. So we had a couple fires while I was working where we hooked up to the hydrant in front of the firehouse. It was
amazing.
where the engine pulled out and nosed up to the firehouse, and we just pulled around them to get to the building. A couple buildings right in the neighborhood burned.
That's amazing.
So that was Milwaukee was a wealth of experience. I learned a lot about fire and about being in fire buildings and operating in fire buildings. But I'll tell you, like the differences. I say you can tell how a fire department operates by what they teach their guys in the academy. So in the academy in Milwaukee, the drill was ladder the building with a 35-foot portable ladder, get 2 roof ladders up, and cut a 4x6 hole in the roof. That was the ladder company job. They weren't real big on search. The engines stretched 5 lengths to the back of the building. There was all 2.5-story buildings with 3-foot alleyways. So you stretched 5 lengths to the back. You had a back stairway that gave you access to all the floors of the building, and you had enough length to reach the front of the attic. That was Milwaukee in a nutshell. New York City, I went to, and we searched and searched and searched. I'm telling you, mask on, mask off, hay fires, search, find a victim. The officer would be standing there, and you'd say, "Oh, 10:45, we have a victim." That's our code for a victim. And he'd say, "Okay, sing me a song," with your mask off in the smoke. So you'd have to sing a song before you could remove the victim. So we did a lot of search, and we did a lot of stretch estimating. In New York City, the engines, they have one pre-connect, and it's in the front bumper for cars and trash. That's it. Everything else comes off the back, and the control man estimates the stretch. So you give it, however many lengths it's going to take to get to the lobby. Hopefully you know your building and know if the guys have center stairs or wing stairs, if they're going into a wing. And you got to know, as a control man, that guy in the engine that was with us in Rescue 5, he had to know that particular building in that project was 16 lengths to the top floor. He had to know that because that's what they were going to stretch. So that's what we did in New York. We searched and we stretched and estimated stretches. And that's how they operate. They estimate stretches in the engine, and they do a bunch of searching. The trucks search, the rescues search, the squads search. I forget where we were going, but the companies. So when I got to New York, I went through Proby school. I came out in an engine in what was called Co-op City. It was 5 sections of 33 and 26-story buildings. And one section was particularly low income and had the demographics for fire. That's just the way it was. So we had one section where we did most of our work. Then we still had a rotation program in New York City Fire Department where you came out to your primary your assigned company, and then you rotated to, if you came out on an engine, you went to a truck or an engine in a different type of area in the city. So I came out to high-rise residential, then they sent me to engine 4, which was high-rise commercial. I was in engine 4. We happened to be second due for the trade center. When the trade center happened, I happened to have gone home the night before. So it just wasn't my time, you know. Everybody else in the firehouse except the 2 chauffeurs died. So we had 14 guys that died. The day shift, incoming day shift, and the night shift, they just happened to hit us at a time right when we were changing shift. So we rode heavy. The engine and truck rode heavy over across, and yeah, everybody except the chauffeurs got killed. So I spent time there in engine 4, and I didn't go right before the trade center. I was there for a while. We had some fires, and it was funny. Actually, it was funny. I was in a high-rise commercial company, and the only time that I fought fire with engine 4, we stretched instead of standpiped. Everything was a stretch. Just happened that just worked out that way, that we had a little row of tenements where we had a fire, and we actually had a fire in France's Tavern, where Washington gave his George Washington gave his inauguration address. They had a fire. Some plumbers had been doing some work, and we had a fire there. So I was in engine 4. The trade center happened, and we lost our engine and the truck. The truck actually broke down, so the truck ended up being there as an elevated platform, doing its truck stuff. And being so close, being that we were actually inside what we called the DMZ, we were inside where the state cops were stopping everybody, and Lower Manhattan was basically a ghost town, rather than staff the companies with rigs that we didn't have. We'd report for work, and we were just going over to the trade center and digging. So I did that for about a month, and then sometime in October, excuse me, sometime in October, the job came out with this liaison position. And the liaison was the go-between for the job and the families of the guys that were lost. And the job, just to their credit, realized that they were overwhelmed, and they didn't have the ability to deal with 343 families through their counseling unit or any established program. So they created this liaison program. So I became a liaison, and I was the go-between between the job and 5 families. We had 3 guys. I had 5 families. Another guy had 5. Another guy had 4. Excuse me. So we did that basically through the operation. When I wasn't being a liaison, when I wasn't actively with a family, I was at engine 4 and 15, and if they were going over to dig, we had an opportunity to dig. A lot of times the families wanted to be at the site, and to their credit, they built a family observing platform where you could bring a family, and they could look over the site, and it put into perspective for them why their loved one wasn't coming home, and why we weren't finding people right away, why it was taking so long. They could come and they could look over the site and see that. So I did that through January, and then I asked. I was pretty burnt out, honestly, and I asked to go back to the company, and I went back to the company halfway through January to the end, and then I took a detail they were detailing guys. You could volunteer to be assigned to the World Trade Center and just dig. So I took a detail in February where I reported every day for 12 hours just down to the Trade Center to dig. And that was, I don't want to say rewarding, but as a guy that was telling families, no, we don't have any sign of your guy yet, more than that platform to overlook the site, it was a chance to get in there and say, you know, holy shit, there just isn't much to find. So that was a not rewarding, but at least a way to understand a little more and go back to the families and say, you know, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we're actually doing down there, and it's going to take time. So
well, it had to be done too, man. You know what I mean? It's
absolutely.
And as prideful as New York is, and I want to say every department, but as prideful as you guys are, like, those are your guys. You know what I mean? No one's going home until they figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a problem in October, the day that plane crashed in Queens in October. There was a meeting that night with the mayor and the medical examiner and those guys. They had a panel and they invited the families of the missing. And that was when they were trying to go from rescue to recovery. And they really wanted to push this cleanup. And the guys just wouldn't have any part of it. The guys were like, look, there's still guys to be found. There's still voids to be explored. And it ended up, I don't know what you guys remember of it, but they actually barricaded the site, and firemen actually marched down to the site one day with families. It was ugly, man. It was really ugly. It was very upsetting. But it pushed the city to the point where we had these teams detailed down there, and every piece and every part of the trade center that was pulled out by these machines was dumped and searched. And then it was transported somewhere else on site of the trade center, and it was dumped and it was searched again. And then it was searched again at Great Kills on Staten Island by the FBI and by the cops. They were getting really down to the nitty gritty there. But I don't know. I can't say that the march on the trade center site pushed them to it or whatever. But I give them credit. I think for as bad as it was, they did the best that they could with the situation, and keeping firemen down there and cops were down there too, to carry our own out went a long way, I think, with the brothers and the brotherhood to be able to do that. That was good. So I was in Engine 4 until March, and then I was looking to get out of downtown, and I didn't feel like I could go back to my original company, just because they hadn't really lost anybody. They were up in the Bronx, and they hadn't responded initially. They responded, hours later from up there. And they didn't lose anybody, and I just didn't feel like I could really relate to the guys going back there. So I looked for another option. And in Milwaukee, I had been a member of the urban rescue team that they had put together. And my lieutenant in Engine 4 knew that. And he started talking about rescues. So I ended up on Rescue 5. I went there in March 2002. And I'll tell you, I can't can't be happier that I went. I love that I got to go. But realistically, I was a guy from an engine that had 3 years on the job. And I got to go to Rescue 5 or a rescue company because a bunch of guys get killed. That's the long and the short of it. And it took, personally for me, I wanted to prove that I belonged there. And that happens, I think, for most guys that come in. I think they want to prove that they can handle the schooling and the role that the rescues play. And so I don't think that that's necessarily exclusive to me or guys that went there after the trade center immediately. I think everybody that goes in wants to prove themselves, but that's my trip, my journey to Rescue 5. And then 14 years there, it was incredible time.
Well, I appreciate that story, but I'm sure I'm probably speaking for Herbie here as well. But we both know you, man, and as good at the trade as you are, and as humble as you are, and just kind of just a genuinely nice guy. Why you hooked up with me and Herb, I'll never know why. But the you'd have been there, man. You're cut out for that. You were definitely cut out for that.
True story.
Okay.
Yeah, and just standing next to you, man, like I couldn't be. I mean, whether you were an engine guy or whatever, the fact that you were on a rescue company, just standing next to you and just hearing you talk to people, like you knew that stuff better than hopefully I know one day. You know what I mean? It was that good, So I appreciate that story, man. That was I know it cuts you guys deep, but it's good to tell. We want all the listeners, all the firefighters that are on here, they haven't forgot, but hopefully there's people on here that are like, man, that's pretty heavy, So I appreciate that story, Dan.
It's that time of year again, and it comes around every year, and there's no escaping it. It's fresh every year when it comes around. My company, Rescue 5, we've decided to continue getting together with the families all of these years. So for 18 years, we've gotten together. On September 11th, we have a mass, and then we have a luncheon, and we get more than 100 people there at Rescue 5. Rescue 5 lost 11 guys as well, because they were, again, change of tours. Guys jumped into their hazmat rig and followed them.
Wasn't Rescue 5 the only survivor? Didn't you guys only had one survivor? Is that correct or no? Am I off?
Well, the TAC unit, and I'm not going to be able to remember his name now because he retired right as I got there. The TAC unit guy lived. Yeah. And like I was saying, the chauffeurs for Engine 4 and Ladder 15, they lived. Ladder 15, we were just on the other side of the Battery Park underpass. So if you look at Lower Manhattan and you see Battery Park, the trade center is right above it, and our firehouse was right above it on the East River. So we used to go right through Battery Park underpass. When Ladder 15 came out of Battery Park underpass on the initial alarm, they hit some debris in the road from the first jet, and it tore an airline. So the rig shut down. The rig stopped. Wow. And the guys got off and ran up and operated, and the chauffeur stayed with the rig to try to get the rig up to the scene, and it ended up saving his life. He was actually in the lobby of the South Tower when the pressure wave came, and he said he rode the pressure wave like you body surf in the ocean, and it just happened to push him out of the lobby. The engine chauffeur, they were on the backside on Liberty Place, and he just heard the collapse of the second tower, and when the the South Tower, which collapsed first.
Mhm.
When the North Tower started to collapse, he ran into a post office loading dock, and he lived that way. He survived because he ran into a loading dock. I don't know Billy's story, honestly, to tell you the truth. The guy that was in the tactical unit, which happens to be housed with Rescue 5. I don't know how he survived or where he was that day. But so we have this luncheon, and actually just this week we just canceled it, unfortunately, because of COVID. There was no way to have it. So they're still going to have the mass, which is important. But that luncheon, which a lot of guys dedicated themselves to maintaining. There are only a few guys in Rescue 5 now that were there for the Trade Center. So it's fallen to the other guys to carry that and to never forget. And we've tried to do that by keeping that luncheon going and always having those families there. So it's very saddening, I think, to me personally, that we're not going to have it this year, unfortunately. But hey, maybe we'll figure it out. We'll have something for the 20th, I'm sure.
You just have to do a double rager next year.
Yeah,
You know?
There you go.
Big old party.
Yep.
Hey, is that affiliated with the what do they call it? The Rescue Remembrance. They cover like 4 and 5, I think. Is that affiliated or no?
No, it's not. Those guys. I honestly don't know that much about the guys. They did come by quarters once with the old rig. That's what they have. They have the old Rescue 5, the Rescue 5 that was at the Trade Center. And they put it together and they go around and they educate people about the Trade Center, and whatever work they do, it's helping people not forget. So I'm okay with it, but I don't know all that much about them.
Dan, I'm gonna just go ahead and get out there and tell you, brother, I'm so sorry for the loss you guys experienced. I can't even imagine the magnitude of losing one member. I mean, we've all lost members, whether on the job or off duty, and we've all gone to line of duty death funerals throughout our careers, and I can't imagine the impact of losing an entire firehouse, an entire shift. The fact that you guys were able to pick up the pieces and continue moving forward as a fire department blows my mind. So my tip of the lid to you guys, man.
Thanks,
you guys
Rob.
set the standard. You guys set the standard nationwide, and a lot of us just ride your coattails, learning from the FDNY, learning from what the Northeast does. When it comes to brotherhood, taking care of the families of the fallen, honoring the fallen with proper memorial events and celebrations of life. No one does it better. September 11th is something that all of us will remember our entire lives. It was my first year in the job. I can tell you, sitting here today, talking to you guys, where I was, what I was doing when I first saw the first plane hit the TV, the second plane, and then, as far as I'm concerned, the way that it impacted my career and the way that it made me go right versus left. I never wanted to be an urban search and rescue guy, but I heard that the Miami Urban Search and Rescue team had gone to the Trade Center to dig the rubble pile 2 days later, and they were there for 15 days and working the pile. And those were guys that I had grown up with. And here I am sitting at home, going to work every third day, watching it on TV like the rest of the country, with this sense of duty that I couldn't fulfill because I wanted to be there for you guys so bad. Because I felt like I was sitting at home trapped because I couldn't get to New York City and do what I wanted to do. That was just my internal battle sitting at home, and I'm being very genuine.
Sure.
And so later on, in 2004 was my first opportunity to get on an urban search and rescue team to fulfill those duties and get the training and get to the point where I've been on the team now close to 18 years. But 9/11 drove me down that road. And ever since then, a group of us from the team and from my department have actually made the trip on 9/11 to New York City for the last 16 years. Every 9/11,
fantastic, Rob.
Every 9/11 we go up to the city. I've made friends, lifelong friends, and no one does it better than the Northeast, where I see these guys for 3 days once a year, and the next time I see them, it's like I saw them yesterday.
Yeah.
Is there,
Yep.
you know, we haven't talked in a year. It's
Yep.
like we pick up the conversation like at a drop of a dime, and no one does it better, brother. So again, man, my heart goes out to you guys. Every year, it's my sense of duty to this day, health permitting, to make that pilgrimage up to the site. I go to all the memorials in the city. I meet at the same bars, the same guys. Most of the guys are, you know, the downtown guys that I hang out with, because that's where I end up going to the World Trade Center. A lot of the
Sure.
18th Battalion guys. And then I see a bunch of old faces that I see every year, guys that survived the collapse, guys that responded to collapse, guys like yourself who lost their entire company. And so for the last 16 years, 17 years, I've been hearing the stories firsthand from these guys. And I always leave there with a sense of duty. Like it's my booster shot in the arm every year. I'll leave here and you'll get beat up. The frustrations of duty, the frustrations of work, you know, your life gets busy. We all have personal lives that, you know, sometimes collide with our professional lives. But that one trip a year to New York City, brother, from from September 9th to September 12th every year, I'm in the city. I'm with the brothers. We talk shop, we drink, we raise a toast, and I come back home re-energized and with a purpose and direction like no one else does. I'm full of energy, ready to go for the following year. And I do it to honor the guys that are no longer with us. And the guys that I go up with understand that. And it's guys like you that have to carry that tradition and carry that burden, because I can never imagine digging for a brother through piles of rubble for a month on end. And then you went double duty and started talking to the families and dealing with that side of the grief and that side of the realization that your family member's never coming home. And again, honored to talk to you, and I'm grateful to have this time with you. And you guys, I do have a question out of all this. How do you think the FDNY itself, as an organization, not professionally but personally at the firehouse level, was able to pick up the pieces and go on that next run after the alarm went off, to the next fire, the next call for duty, with members like yourself, 3-year guys in the Rescue 5, 2-year guys in Rescue 3, companies that were decimated that have junior members on it, and the Rock pumping out new recruits, hundreds at a time, to backfill and refill the staffings that you guys lost. How did the culture and the continuity continue or change from September 10th, 2001 to where we are today? Because it's a different department. It's got to be a different department from September 10th, 2001, when you got off duty, till today.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would almost break it into times. I would break it into commissioners, I guess, right? So when the trade center happened, and by the way, Rob, guys like you with your story that come up, they pump us up too, and it wasn't lost on the brothers in FDNY. We didn't not notice the guys that came from all over the world, to stand up and stand on line for our guys, because we just couldn't be there. You had four funerals in a day. The pipe band was splitting up into 4 groups just to cover 4 funerals, and guys were coming, guys from jobs that maybe don't normally have dress uniforms. Guys were buying their own dress uniforms, footing their own bill, paying their own way, just to stand on line for our guys, and that meant a lot. I think FDNY on September 10th really thought that the fire community stopped at the Hudson River. They really didn't know anything beyond our borders. And culturally, I think the department was shown that it's a bigger brotherhood than just ourselves. That this thing it goes beyond our borders. I mean, we had guys in Rescue 5 from England with more scrambled eggs on their visor. I don't know what fucking rank they were, but they they shacked up at Rescue 5. So we're like, yeah, we'll make a bed for you, whatever. So they're going out, they eat dinner with us, they go out for the night. The guys put their beds on empty soda cans. So all 4 posts are on empty soda cans. So when the guys come back, they go to get in bed, right? They lay on the bed and boom, it collapses. And all you could hear was these English guys, these chiefs of whatever, were laughing. You know, nobody had done that to them for 30 years. So we got it. We felt it, and we got it. And there were guys that before 9/11 that went to FDIC. There were guys that were out there teaching that knew that this thing was bigger than FDNY, but as a job, as a group of people, I should say, I think that our eyes were opened to the rest of the world, to the fire service, not just the job, the fire department, the fire service throughout the world, and it was amazing. It was amazing. Now, culturally, Von Essen was the commissioner, and he had been the union president. So some things changed under him that it was almost like getting an insider to be the boss. You know, he had been the union president. He kind of knew what kind of things went on, and now he's a commissioner, and now those things are like not okay. So that was an issue before the 11th. Once the 11th hit, he was a non-entity, and pretty much anything went in the firehouse. It was we called it the lid was off, meaning that guys were drinking, and companies were racing the fires. The lid was off. It was there was no supervision of the children, basically. And then Bloomberg got in, and he brought in Scopetta, and Scopetta, funny enough, he came from Children's Services to oversee the fire department. So
perfect.
Right. He actually had a pretty good background, I guess. He was old. He was really old. But he came in and he put the lid back on, and the fire department started rebuilding. Cassano got in, and he was a chief that came up through the ranks. He didn't come from an outside agency. He didn't come up through the union. He was a chief. He worked his way up, got up to that point, got made commissioner. He was very good to us, I think, as a commissioner. But you're right, Rob. We had, the average age of the fire department went from 17 years down to like 3. Wow. It was a bad time, and then we got Nigro in. Now Nigro had been a chief, and he had integrated EMS into the fire department, and he's kind of a yes guy. So there are things happening in the fire department now. They tell me that it's a job that I wouldn't recognize. I'm out 4 years in October. Wow. Anyway, culturally, we knew, I think the firemen knew that things had to change. I think that the outside world got too much of a look into the firehouse, into the culture, because of 9/11. I think we let people in too deep, too far. And I think maybe we knew that things were going to change, and they have, but maybe not so much as they've changed on your job too. We were talking, that same battalion chief, we were talking about putting water on the fire. We were talking about the kids coming in with the Xbox or on their phone, the gaming generation. And there was a great article. WNYF is with New York Firefighters. It's a magazine published by FDNY. And
Danny, a
yeah.
fun fact. I have WNYF from 1970s all the way to 1998. I probably have about 300 copies of it.
Awesome. Well, that's a wealth of stuff. Yeah. Well,
nerd.
and like 1978,
Total nerd.
Like 1978, there was this article written about the new guys, the new generation coming in, and it was guys. It was the old war year guys. Now we're retiring, and the fire service runs in waves, cycles, and civil service gets a big influx after every war, actually, because we bring the veterans in. So you had a lot of the war year guys, the Korea and Vietnam year guys going in 78, and they had this great article, and it sounded like it could have been written in 2010. It was, these guys don't know how to play cards. They got different interests. So the fire department runs in cycles, is my point. Whether the trade center happened or not, the fire department was going to change. You look at equal employment opportunity stuff. We've got a couple lawyers that run that department for FDNY. They're very active. They have a bunch of mandated training. They bring diversity into the job, that whole thing. That was coming, whether the trade center happened or not. I believe.
Yeah.
I feel like every time we're at the kitchen table, you're sitting with a group of lawyers.
Oh.
They can solve everything. They solve all the problems.
You bet. Yeah, you got a lawyer, an accountant, you got a fucking foot doctor.
You got a mortgage guy.
Yeah, right.
A realtor.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Before we move on, I just want to tip a glass.
Absolutely. I was going to say that.
Yeah. Never forget.
Hey, never forget. And thank you, Danny. I appreciate that.
Never forgive.
Hey, thank you, Dan. Hey, Dan.
Yeah,
so
that's a tough act to follow, too, by the way.
Yeah.
So we had a question from one of the guys, Bobby Bennett, asked, what's the single most positive change you've seen in your career, and also the single most negative change you've seen in your career?
Well, I think the most positive thing I saw was they went back to personal harnesses for bailing out or whatever. In my time on the job, they had gone from issuing personal ropes and guys wearing personal harnesses to no harnesses, to position harnesses, where you came in and you were the roof man that day, so you were expected to take the roof man's harness from the day tour and adjust it to fit you for the night tour. And it just wasn't happening. You guys know that guys weren't going to do that. So I think one of the positive changes, and I don't know if this is what Bobby meant, but personally for me was to see them go back to personal harnesses and every guy on the job have the ability to bail out a window. The Black Sunday, I think, opened our eyes to that. They were not a generation of firemen away from issuing personal ropes and guys having harnesses. They were less than a generation away from that. And those 6 guys went out the back windows that day, Black Sunday. So going back to personal harnesses and escape ropes and the training that went with that. And I mean, I'll give him credit. I don't know if people can understand the size of FDNY, but it costs $20 million to train everybody on the personal rope. $20 million. That's a big investment. Investment. And unfortunately, the guys on Black Sunday had to pay that price for us.
They as an organization too, $20 million is a lot of money, but I'm saying you guys did that research definitely correctly, because everybody had it. Yeah, absolutely. And whoever that was, they did it right. And I wish that was absolutely contagious to across the board, but it comes down to budget. Somebody needs to get hurt, knee-jerk reaction.
Absolutely.
I mean, but yeah, that was good. That was a game changer.
Yeah, those guys, I mean, they spared no expense in the testing. They went through heat on the ropes. They went through drop loads. They went through abrasion. They did it. They did their job. And that Crosby hook, I mean, it's awesome. I had one of the guys in Rescue 5 used to break my balls. Well, break my balls, but lovingly, of course, because it's the 5.
Of course,
lovingly. Oh. But when we used to teach guys new into the company about bailing out, I used to go out on a 10-penny nail instead of the Crosby hook. I'd put a 10-penny nail in the corner of the window and bail out on that, just to teach them the idea of, you know, that 90-degree turn on the window takes up 50% of your load. And that's how I learned it. I learned it. I didn't make the shit up. I learned that you could go out on a nail, you could go out on a table leg. You didn't need that Crosby hook, you know. You go out on a rolled up magazine if you had to, you know. But that Crosby hook is pretty awesome. I can't take that away from him. And you're right, Greg. The guys that they put in charge of that, their heart was in the right place, and they came up with, I think, a really good system. And it's guys have bailed out on it, so it works. Definitely works.
That was a game changer. That was an absolute game changer for not only for you guys, but for the entire fire service. I know right after that we ended up getting integrated harnesses in all our gear. I don't know about what you guys doing in your department up north, but
same thing.
Every member has their own set of bailout gear with 50 feet of rope in their left pocket, with a drop forge Crosby hook, a descending device.
We did it halfway. We did the harnesses, and then they hook these bags. They look good. They're Kevlar bags. They hook them to the side. They usually end up on the dash or behind the seat or whatever. But it's never a big deal until it's a big deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you know, I think they should do what you guys did. Hey, your left pocket. I mean, Danny, you're just gonna have to put your snacks somewhere else. You know, you know, keep them on the truck, but your left side is for bailing out. Period.
Right.
Yeah, my left leg is for me. We have it offset. It sits to the front of our thigh. We actually had the pants custom cut, and we had the pocket moved in about 4 inches, so it sits more lateral right over your thigh, so you have real access to it when you're down low. Real unique story. You know, rest in peace, Joey DiBernardo. Joey D came down in right around 06, 07, 08 to Fort Lauderdale, and you guys know I teach a lot of survival stuff, and he was my first-hand experience to Black Sunday, and we did a full day at Broward Fire Academy twice with him, teaching bailout to the guys down here in South Florida, and just right before when he passed in 11 or 12, but his first-hand story of what happened that day, and him having his personal rope with him, and having his personal bailout kit that he chose to carry with him on Rescue 3 because he felt it was important enough for him to carry. He was training other members on it already. You know, it saved a life that day, saved his life, you know, and got, you know, Jeff and those guys to where they are today, where they're able to watch their kids grow up.
That's true. And the other thing too, if you if I think I'm probably going to butcher his name, and I apologize. Eugene Kowalski.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I think he was one of the fifth guys or something. I've seen that guy speak probably 4 times, and I want to say it's better every time because he's like living proof of all that and the things he says, and he's humble, and he's off the job, and it just unbelievable, man. Just talking to that, listening to him, and he's one of those guys. I'm not. I don't want to say starstruck, so to speak, but I feel like, man, I got to go up and shake this guy's hand, man, because the info that he just gave me, I feel is priceless.
Yeah,
and
that was a bad day, and he lived through it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, him talking about it, I feel that's extremely brave, like a warrior.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? To go up and talk about it, but then he's also leaning out to where he's going to help other people. You know what I mean? And if you pick one thing up from that, that's a game changer. Or you get the best thing that I think he would do is if you get one chief or one training guy say, you know what, this is important. This is what needs to happen in my department. And I appreciate that,
Absolutely.
We put our entire department once a year. You have to get at least 2 slides on your bailout kit once a year. Mandatory. Every 12 months, every member in the department has to put 2 slides on their bailout. So we take them out to the academy, we put them on belay, they go out of 2nd floor window, they go out of 3rd floor window, and they troubleshoot it. They use remote anchors, they use a windowsill. Every member does it twice a year as part of their mandatory training.
Right.
And
like anything, it's a perishable skill. It has a shelf life, and you're only as good as the last time you did it.
Well, I mean,
that's fantastic that the guys are put through that.
To touch on like what Greg said and Dan said, it's always a knee-jerk reaction. Something bad has to happen for the admin to say, okay, you know what, shit needs to change. And then the culture starts changing once something bad happens. It's hard to see. The 4 of us here have been all over teaching. We can probably count on our hand how many departments are truly proactive, but we can name a shit ton of departments that are reactive. So we're always waiting for something bad to happen for that change, because like Greg said, it's a budget constraint. It's one of those things where it's not going to happen to us. It's not going to happen here. Our department does it. It's not going to happen. Well, then when it does happen, now it's a knee-jerk reaction. Oh shit! Now everything's going 360 and shit's changing and the data's not there. So honestly, when FDNY did their bailout, it was contagious throughout the United States. Everybody was into it because the data was there. Everything was in order. And honestly, that was probably one of the biggest things I've seen in my career in the fire service that has happened. And it was all because it was data driven. And the data proved that we need this.
Yeah. The data said we were being sued for $100 million. So let's spend 20. Yeah. It's unfortunate. You're right.
The other thing about that story,
reactive animal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a horrible thing to a point. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
that's kind of our nature, but it doesn't have to be that way in everything.
Right.
Right.
Well,
the crazy thing
that comes back to drill, Greg.
Oh, absolutely.
Drilling, being the senior man and leading by example, and drilling is proactive as opposed to reactive, which by nature we are. The alarm goes off, we react. That's the way it is. But the way to be proactive and down to the company level is through drilling.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. The other thing too that people don't, a lot of people don't, unless you really like focused on it about that whole Black Sunday, is the I can't remember the guy's name, but he was fairly young in the department. That was one of his first fires. He bailed out. He was off the job, I want to say a year and a half. Came back to the same company And the first fire he went to, I don't know if it was the first couple shifts or first shift, he bailed out again. So the dude's been on 2 fires in 2 years, and he's bailed out of both of them. And this was in Eugene's story, but he was like, the old chauffeur came up to him and was like, "Man, I don't know what you're getting into, dude, but you got to leave this house." So it was kind of funny. It was a funny take on everything, man. But
Absolutely.
I thought that was priceless for an old chauffeur to say something like that. Like, you got to go, dude.
That's something that we would say in the circle, you know. We had
let's get there.
We had this informal critique area that grew behind the rig, and it was a lot of times it was change of tours. Sometimes it was in the middle of the tour, but a lot of times it was change of tours because there's more guys. And we created this area where everybody kind of stood on a perimeter behind the rig. And it evolved into this thing called the Circle. It actually got its name one medal day. One of the guys got a medal for a fire rescue he made. And we were all standing out there in the parking lot in this big circle. And somebody said, "This is the way we always end up, in a big fucking circle, just so we can see each other's face when we break each other's balls." And so Rescue 5 behind the rig became the Circle. We even went and we got a wire spool from the electric company, and we created this round table with the Special Operations Rescue 5 patch on it. And it sits in the middle of the circle. And we have 6 chairs. There's 6 guys in the company that working at any time. And you're in the circle. And we have a deputy chief in quarters. And the chief knows when he walks through the circle, he's fair game. If there's something going on, we had a chief that was driving a little Spider to work, you know, and he all of a sudden he was doing triathlons and he was driving this Spider, and he walked through the circle and somebody was like, "Hey chief, you fucking midlife crisis or what? What's going on with you?" Everybody's fair game. If you don't want to be in the circle, if you don't want to be fair game, then you walk around the rigs and you avoid it. But a lot happens in the circle. You grow up in the circle, you know, you take your lumps in the circle. If you fucked up, that's your opportunity to say it to the guys incoming and the guys that you worked with that day, to say, "Listen, I fucked up and I own it. And, you know, hopefully it doesn't have to go, you know, further than this." And usually it doesn't if you own it. If you don't own it, then you end up in some kind of a mock trial where you get charged with debauchery, scumbaggery, right? Is that the word you were?
What was the other one, Dan?
Debauchery. I don't know what that.
Douchebaggery.
Douchebaggery. That was the one.
Douchebaggery. We end up with a mock trial, and I just happened to end up as the judge wearing a mop head, a brand new mop on my hat with a black robe, and the guy had counsel, and we had a prosecuting attorney and all that stuff, and he was charged with douchebaggery.
So I snagged that idea from you a while ago, and you sent me the printout, and that's exactly what we did. We did a spool. We did Firehouse 5 on it, and it started off pretty good. But I think it just becomes, now it's kind of like, you know, guys put their tools and leave their coffee cups. But Herbie, he actually hates that table. I don't know why. He must have got his feelings hurt at that table or something.
You got to have thick skin to go through the circle. You got to have thick skin.
I don't know what it was, man.
What happened, Herb? What happened?
Hey, listen, Dan. With a name like Herbie, you got to have thick skin. And hey, when your best friend is Greg Rogers, your skin is as thick as it possibly comes. I promise you that.
Yeah.
Whoa, easy. I thought this was supposed to be friendly. I wasn't sure we were going to be doing all that, dude.
I got a question,
No,
Danny.
Yeah, Rob.
The deal with is that circle unique to Rescue 5? Are you guys the only rescue that have that?
Well, you know, imitation is the best compliment, and I have seen it in other places.
All right, right on.
So you know, we detail each other around the, you know, you end up working in a different rescue because you're heavy that day and they're light, and I have seen it in other places. I won't name names, but I did take a picture and send it back to the guys and just tell them imitation is the best compliment.
Does it rhyme with blue, like rescue kind of?
No.
Okay, I was just checking.
No,
you told me
it's the other guys.
The other guys. You told me that guys have reached out to you and said, "Hey man, can I get that printout?" And you were all about like, "Hey man, change the name here and there, you know, whatever, and make it your own." And with Dan's permission, Rob, if you're interested, I'll send you the printout that he gives me and take a picture of our table. It's not as cool as theirs. I mean, Danny bought new chairs for him when he retired, little fluffy chairs and all that. But yeah, it's pretty nice, man.
Did this circle take the place and replace the kitchen table?
No.
You have an engine in the firehouse, and you just want to have your own rescue time. Is that why?
It's hangout for us. It was kind of hang out in the bay, and like he said, you just kind of get a little beat up out there, and leave your feelings at the door. Kitchen table's still the kitchen table, the way I understood it. Dan, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong.
I think Dan might have froze.
How does he hold that pose for so long?
I'm impressed.
Maybe his Wi-Fi. He'll come back.
It's a good pose. Could have been worse.
All right, so, hey, Greg, you can probably answer it since you did go on with Danny and you asked him about it. So Andrew sent a text in. Question. He said, "So is the circle one of the better ways to train to live?" I believe it is, but what are your thoughts?
So, and like I said, I'm going to tell you my take on it. And I talked to Dan for a while about this. He gave me the printout. He told me what they utilize it for, in his house. Cause across the floor, he's got engine 160. He's got a district in his house. A TAC, which is basically like a second piece, and then the rescue company, which is running like 5 or 6 guys. So what they do is they utilize it is when they go to something, it's kind of their hot wash, but it's no rank, and you can be charged with whatever, so to speak, like he was saying. But it comes down to it. You got to be honest when you go to that table, and I've done it a few times with guys at my house. And, if they need to ask me like, "Hey, what were you thinking on that extrication?" Sometimes it's like, "Hey man, it worked out good and we jammed." And other times it's like, "You know what? I really wasn't thinking. So you guys made me look good and I appreciate that, but I'll tighten up around the corners," that type deal. But it's like he said, the senior man goes in if their exchange of times aren't working. Somebody's slacking off in the station, officers walk away, senior man handles his business. And then the new guys, we've faded off a little bit on ours, and I really don't know whose fault it is. So being the captain of the house, I'll definitely take the blame for it. But hopefully my crew's listening, and hopefully that comes back, that senior man deal on the circle, for a couple of reasons. Keep the house running smooth, and to honor what it was made for, because I basically stole it right from Dan, and he said tweak it to however you want, and that's pretty much what we've done, and it works out. It works out pretty good.
Good.
Hopefully that worked, Andrew. Hopefully that was your question. Herbie, repeat that to Dan. Maybe he can tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, I disappeared. Did I mention I'm in rural Pennsylvania?
Great.
So the circle I see from Andrew is one of the better ways to train to live. I'll tell you what, you got to have thick skin on this job, and you got to be able to handle pressure. That's the bottom line. You got to be able to handle pressure, and and you can be the best toilet scrubber, and you can be the best guy at scrubbing the pots and pans, but we've got to know that you can handle pressure, and the circle is a spot for that, to put you under pressure and see how you react. Not to take away from scrubbing pots like your life depends on it, or being the best toilet scrubber in the world. My last day on the job, I cleaned the toilets just because the other guys were out, and it had to be done. So there's no job in the firehouse that somebody should walk by, regardless of their time. But that junior guy, he's got to be the one that steps up and takes care of things. And in the circle, you just got to be a man. You got to have the thick skin, and you got to work under pressure. That's the way it goes.
Hey Dan, so I had a question for you.
Yeah, bro.
How long were you in your career when you actually started teaching at the Rock?
Well, I went through training at the Rock in my first summer in Rescue 5. I was mostly at the Rock getting my training, and they started with rope rescue. You had to know the knots and all that stuff. Then they went to confined space, and then trench, and then the top of the pyramid of the USAR pyramid is collapsed. After I was trained, which I think on FDNY, including scuba, was probably 11, 12, 16 weeks of training to really be a fully trained rescue firefighter. After that, John Norman, who might be a familiar name, was the chief of SOC, and he part of the anyway, they did this study about the Trade Center and how FDNY responded and where we could do better. And part of what that study said was that we needed to be deeper in special operations. So they created support trucks, they call them, rescue support trucks. So there's 20 trucks in FDNY that are trained to use a lot of the equipment that we use, and at least identify it so they can help us to retrieve it from the rig, set it up, and get it operational. So after going through all my training in that summer, probably sometime during that winter, Herbie, I went and started training support trucks. And that was basically, here's a cache of tools that the support trucks are going to be given, work out a training to make that cache usable. And the guys that happened to be at rescue school at the time, they took it and they ran with it. And I had the opportunity to go up and teach it. So I started teaching probably in like 2003, but I was teaching support trucks, which is they're not rescues and squads. They're not special operations guys. They're really, hey, this is how the equipment works and this is how to set it up, that kind of stuff. But that being said, I still have my hands on the equipment a lot. And there was a guy up there, what was his name? Stan Cecina from Rescue 1. He was leading the support truck thing. And I was basically working under him when I was up there. And he had a saying that said, I don't teach ropes because I'm good at ropes. I'm good at ropes because I teach ropes. And I took that to heart. I thought, Jesus, the best thing I can do is keep teaching this stuff and keep my hands in it. And that makes me that much better. That's the last time. You're only as good as the last time you handled the stuff, and all these skills are perishable. So teaching was another opportunity to have my hands on this stuff more and more.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that statement more. that's kind of our MO too, just to give a quick plug. At
Yep.
At NRC, we always go in the room, and I mean we've taught with you too, Dan, without a doubt. And it's like, listen, we're not the experts in the room, we're not the best guy in the room, we're just more organized than everyone else. So let us kind of give you our streamlined plan, and we'll get there in the end. And everyone appreciates that. I feel it works.
Right. And you know, you go places, you go all over the country to teach, you guys. And when it comes down to it, the people you're teaching are actually the resident experts. They know
Absolutely.
what's in their district. They've done the inspection. I see confined space on here. They know what kind of confined space entry issues they have in their district. They know their occupancies. And they're really the resident experts. And you're there to teach them some kind of skills and offer them an opportunity to handle some equipment that might enhance what they can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, we got your application still active, Dan. So I just want to let you know that if you're getting kind of bored over there in Pennsylvania, just hanging out, you know, we could utilize a guy like you, you know?
Someday maybe I'll be qualified.
Or at least just come hang out.
You know, we were talking
about the page. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Billy. Bobby, go ahead.
No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Finish what you were gonna say.
We were talking about the trade center, and I alluded to it, and I you know, personally for me, I thank the guys that came and stood up for our guys. And I know, like you said, Bobby, you were there chomping at the bit. You wanted to get up and you wanted to get a piece of it. I'll tell a quick story. I was Rocky Jones, a female captain, was my captain in Engine 4. She happened to be on vacation at the Trade Center. She came back maybe day 3. So I took her around to show her what we had looked at, where we thought Engine 4 was, where we were looking for the guys and that. And we stopped in the tent, in the command tent, to talk to the chiefs. And while we were there, a group from Chicago came in, and the one of them was a battalion chief, and he came up to the chief and he said, "Excuse me, chief, we just drove all night from Chicago to get here, and we don't care what we do. We'll hold buckets while your guys piss in them, but put us to work." And that's really the attitude that everybody came into the Trade Center with. You know, it really it meant a lot to us.
We had guys go up there that had no idea where they were going to sleep. They took refuge at firehouses, factories, restaurants, diners. A lot of the firehouses downtown took in a lot of our guys that went up there on their own dime and without a clue where they were going to end up sleeping, where they were going to shower, where they were going to get their next meal. And they couldn't have been happier than a pig in shit to do it.
Yeah.
Guys from all over the Miami area, Fort Lauderdale area, West Palm. These guys were all over it.
At Engine 4 and Ladder 15, we had a racquetball court, and we set up cots that we got from the Red Cross. We set up like a bunkhouse, and we had guys from all over up there sleeping. But they were there for the right reason. Their heart was in the right place. Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. I have a question.
Where were you going to go, Bob? Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to just go ahead and switch the subject for a little bit and talk about training again and some experience based on what you've experienced in your life. Let's talk about near misses or line of duty deaths or maydays that you've been involved in or been witness to or heard of on the job. I've noticed in my career that we train so hard to get out of trouble that we kind of fail to teach our people how to stay out of trouble, identifying the risk factors, identifying when the building's shot in the head, when you've pushed too far, too deep, too fast,
Right.
when your water supply get cut off, the smoke conditions, color, clarity, velocity, all these things that talk to you when you're doing these size ups and making your way to the fire floor. We fail to focus on that, and it gets a lot of our members in trouble. Is there a time in your career where you can think of a near miss or a mayday you were involved in that you walked out of there and it changed the way you operated from that day forward, or something you carried with you the rest of your career where you're willing to share with our listeners?
Yeah. This fire that you happen to have up right now, it was a 3-story tenement attached to a 2-story with commercial on the first floor that they had broken through and expanded to the 2 buildings. And the fire was actually lit. It's a 5 and dime store. The fire is lit in the rear by a worker who wanted the rest of the day off. The owner of the 5 and dime store died in this fire, trying to fight it with the fire extinguishers. So we got in. It wasn't far from quarters. We were assigned to the 2nd floor to do a search. We had the force entry. I had the can. So my job, my mentality in that is, as the can man, get to the area over the fire with the can and check for extension. Of course, I'm doing a primary search, but I'm also looking for extension because I happen to be a guy with 2.5 gallons of water.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a left-handed search. I shot right through. I felt a kitchen, went through some tile. I felt a room to my right. I was still on some tile. I went to carpet, and I went into a bedroom. And the bedroom had a particularly deep closet. As I searched the perimeter of the bedroom, I stayed on the wall. I came to a window, and I looked out. And outside that window, there was a flat roof. It was a 1-story setback for the building, which was the store, part of the store. Mm-hmm. And so that, to me, became my secondary egress. I searched the closet. I went back. Heat was starting to build up. I came back. I had turned back now. My right hand was on the wall. I made a turn, and I went into a bathroom. All of a sudden, I was at a toilet, and I didn't find a bathroom on my way in. So in my mind, mm-hmm. I'm lost. I'm not where I think I should be. I'm lost. So I have to turn around and go back to where I know where I am, which is the window. Mm-hmm. So I turned around, conditions worsening. Turned around, went back, left-handed search, back by that closet, back to that window, and I went out onto the 1-story setback. And the roof man from our company was back there, and he came up kind of laughing at me, and he goes, "Man, you're smoking." He had gone up to that roof, and he had removed an air conditioner from that window. Wow. So I don't know if I would even have found that window, never mind been able to force my way through it when I needed to. So that, to me, that was a near miss for me, but mm-hmm. it solidified the basics of, I was on a left-handed search, nothing fancy, a left-handed search, and a lights out, floor above condition with high heat. And had I not stuck to the basics, find a window, I found a radiator with a window above it. The first thing I found was a radiator, right? If up north and probably down in the south, they put climate control on outside walls because that's where the problem's coming from. So if you find an air conditioner or some kind of climate control thing, that's an outside wall. And you need to remember that as your secondary egress. That's your secondary egress until you find another one. Yeah. So that was to me personally, that was a near miss for me. To finish that story, I went down I was on the 1-story setback. I went down a ladder, went back up to the 2nd floor, found my officer who was back in the hallway with the irons man. And I said, hey, I just went out a window in the back. He said, all right, great. They're bringing a line in. Help him with the line. So I helped him with the line. And that's what we're doing on the fire escape, was we're actually stretching a line into that second floor for extension. And advancing that line with my foot in front of me, when we came to that room that I had found on the first time past, we came to that room and I went to advance the line in there with my foot in front of me, and my foot went into space. That floor had collapsed into the first floor. And another basic skill, keeping something in front of me, not committed to that area in front of me. Again, another near miss. We were trying to fight two floors of fire. We weren't going to win, not with 1 3/4 inches. So we ended up backing out. And actually, the senior guy behind me that had my backup on the line said, Dan, they're here to take over, give up the line. I gave up the line and crawled back, and there was nobody behind us. My senior man just wanted the fucking nozzle, and he stole it from me. The fucker. That's awesome. Anyway, that's another time. But yeah, Bobby stole it from me. Yeah, they're here to take over the nozzle.
That was a nice move on his part.
Yeah.
Hey Dan, so we got a couple questions coming in.
Okay.
So this is actually like a 3-part question.
Okay.
So it's from the Can Man. He wants to know, first, is Greg ever going to grow his mustache again? He's asking for a friend.
September 1st.
He said also, is a circle the best way to reflect on how you can do better for yourself and your crew? That's question number 1. And then he said, Dan, when you decided to put your papers in, how did that impact you? What motivated you to retire? And did you feel it was the right moment to move on and start the next chapter?
Yeah. So I don't know when Greg's going to start his mustache. Must have something to do with hunting.
September 1st. It has to do with my wife not leaving me. That's what it has to do with.
Nice. The circle is definitely a good place. I don't know about reflection, but it's definitely a good place to get feedback of, was I in the right place at the right time? And, you should have an answer. You should have an answer as to why you were there. If somebody questions you, if you have the outside vent man position and somebody says, bro, why were you on the fire floor? You should have a good answer as to what made you commit to the fire floor instead of your assigned position. My captain in the rescue, the captain, Billy Burke, who was for the longest stretch while I was there, he grew up in Brooklyn as a fireman, and he grew up in some great companies. And he used to say, you'd go to a fire, you go to one fire, and if you screwed up, you had a chance to correct yourself the second fire.
There we go. Yeah.
So you knew that you'd be going to another fire that night, and you had a chance to correct yourself. That's just not the way it is. Not for anybody. Not even for those great companies in Brooklyn, or in the Bronx, or in Harlem. Really, anywhere. You're glad to get a fire and a tour. So for us, the circle, it is a place to get not reflect, but at least reinforced. Yeah, you were in the right place. Yeah, you should have done that. Yeah, I agree with you. Or no, you know what? You kind of fucked up. You really belonged where you belong. We had fire. One of the questions we talked about before the broadcast was like removing people. So removing civilians, what I learned as a paramedic was under the arms and grab both wrists. And removing civilians, I got to tell you, as low as you have to get, you can almost belly crawl backwards with somebody by their under their arms and by their wrists. I've pulled a few people out like that, and they don't slip away. And it reminds me of a fire where one of the guys I was working with, we had a fire in a 2-story brick row house, and our OV went in the front window. We were delayed. The inside team was delayed getting in because of congestion on the stairs. The seat of the fire was at the top of the stairs, so the engine was working. The OV went in and found a lady in the front bedroom. Just as that happened, some space freed up on the front stairs. I shot upstairs, and I ended up with the woman and dragged her out via the interior stairs. And in that same fire, our outside vent man showed up where he belonged, in the back of the building. But, you know, for us, a rescue company, we're a toolbox, but not a ladder. He didn't have a ladder with him. And in the back, because of grade, it was a 3.5-story building, and he was really out of the mix. He had no way to get in. It was a separate apartment on the rear. He was really upset about that because we had found somebody. We pulled her out. We found a baby. We pulled her out, and he was upset that he wasn't in the mix. But what he was where he belonged. Somebody had to cover that spot. So in the circle, he might be like, geez, you know, guys, nice job. You made a grab, 1045. That's terrific. I was fucking playing with myself in the backyard because it was because of the grade. I couldn't get to you. Well, guess what? That's where you belonged. If somebody was hanging out those windows, you'd have found a way to get to them. So yeah, the circle is that. About my papers, I didn't want to go. I have 2 rods, 8 screws, and a stimulator in my back. Not woe is me. Retirement is great. I had a great run. But I didn't put my papers in. They were put in for me.
So Dan, elaborate on that for people who don't understand, because I can still remember when you explained it to me. Explain to them how that works at FDNY. When you get metal placed in you, what happens?
Yeah, as soon as you get stuff in your body, they're out on it. You can get this stuff put in you in the military and go back to your unit. But the way it was explained to me is the federal government has a different liability structure, and the city of New York is just not willing to take on a liability of somebody with stuff implanted in them. So once I got the rods and the screws in my back, and the stimulator, they were like, yeah, no, we're not interested. And they started me on the process to get out. So I'm out. I'm actually out on a duty disability, not by choice. I miss it every day. I still talk to the guys and live it vicariously through them. But like I said in the beginning, retired life doesn't suck. So
Hey,
I got no complaints.
So on that, let me I had to step out for 1 second, but did you go into when you were driving for your SOC chief? Did you talk about that, Dan, or no?
No, I was assigned to Special Operations Command, to the headquarters of Special Operations. And what I actually kind of tried to square root. That's a term we use when you go around. I tried to square root the system, and I tried to drive the SOC chief, which is a full duty position. And I thought maybe if I could drive the SOC chief, because they only operate on second alarms and greater. and technical rescues, and the driver, the chauffeur for the SOC chief, doesn't get that wrapped up in it. He's usually monitoring the radio, or he's operating with whatever SOC company's on scene. I thought maybe I could go that route, but I was told, in no small words, no, absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Well, some of the duties with that too, I thought was kind of interesting because they and correct me if I'm wrong. This is going a few years back. We were probably at a bar drinking a couple beers, but you were saying, well, you were drinking. I was not drinking. I was actually trying to pick your brain. You were saying that the chauffeur for the SOC chief, second alarm or greater, like you'll operate with a set of irons. You'll actually do a quick search with the chief behind you. And the big deal was the doc didn't want you to wear an air pack. That was the reasoning. Is that correct, or am I off?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they don't want you throwing a mask on your back when you got all this hardware in it. And that's just the way it is,
That'd have been a good gig, though.
Oh, it's a really good gig. It is. Driving a SOC chief, it's a great spot. So you figure second alarms or greater or any technical rescue in the city. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the SOC chief, when the SOC chief gets in, generally he acts as a liaison, which was the original term. The original term under Downey was rescue liaison. That was before special operations was such an umbrella. But now the special operations chief, he acts as a kind of a liaison between the special operations companies and the incident commander. And he's kind of there to say, well, they're doing this for safety and they're doing this for safety and they're doing that for safety. And he uses the word safety a lot so we can do what we got to do.
I like it.
Hey, Dan, so
Yes.
Travis from Martin County Fire Rescue Special Ops.
Okay.
Question in. He said, speaking on searching, what do you think of tick-oriented searching or a wall searching technique?
Okay, so a tick is a great tool, but the way I explain it is this. When you go in and you're on, you decide to do a right or a left-handed search, whatever your search plan is, you have a tool with you, whether it's a hook or a Halligan or an axe or whatever it is, and you extend that into the room. And that extends your search. You have a foot on the wall, you're out 6 feet because you're a tall fella, and you got your tool extended into the room. You reach in the center of the room, you go around the room, and the room is searched. With a thermal imaging camera, what it essentially does is it extends that reach for you. So as you go in, you do your 6-sided search. Okay, how big is the room? You get that by looking at the ceiling. 55 degrees is pretty much what you get out of a thermal imager. So you look wall to wall to make sure you cover the whole room. You look at the floor to look for holes, and then you start your search. Whether you're guiding another firefighter to search or you're doing the search, what you're doing with thermal imaging camera is eliminating areas that you don't have to search in that room. If you see a pile of what looks like laundry across the room from you, you can't eliminate that as a person. You still have to go and physically hands-on search that person, that clump of clothes. A bed. I wouldn't take a thermal imaging reading on a bed as a search. I just wouldn't take it. A bed, I'm going to climb up on it. I'm going to touch 4 corners, make sure nobody's on the bed. So a thermal imaging camera is fantastic, especially if you're guiding a firefighter. So I believe the thermal imager, belongs with the officer in general line companies. He's got his firefighters doing their basic right and left-handed search. But I don't think that's a license to come off the wall. That wall and the things you feel along it, that's your map on the way out when that camera quits on you. So what I advocate is, okay, you take a look around the room. Before you move to the next point, you pick that point with the thermal imager, and then you take that camera away from your face and you create a touch map to that next spot. So you go around that couch and you feel the couch and you feel the coffee table on your left and you feel your way to that next corner before you put that thermal imaging camera down the hallway. Now you've identified, okay, it's a ranch house. I got 3 bedrooms and a bathroom down there. And I know that my guy has to search them. But you've identified that you have a couch between you and the door. When that tick quits on you, or when it's hot and you're starting to feel that heat through the seams of your turnout gear, you don't want to be looking through the tick camera to figure out where the door is. You want to reverse yourself and do a left-hand search and get out of there. And when you go by that couch, you're going to be like, whoo, I'm like 3 feet from the door. Okay. Yeah. So that thermal imager extends your reach. It's not the end all. I hope that makes sense.
That's a great answer to that question. And while you were answering it, I was right along with you, thinking we're on the same page. You're reassuring me that I'm doing things right. I'm very cautious of teaching our new members to live and die on that 3-inch screen.
No way.
You lose so much of your awareness, your spatial awareness, your surroundings, the couch, the tile to carpet, the inward swinging door, outward swinging door.
Absolutely.
That mapping you're generating as you're traveling through zero visibility. So that when shit does go bad, if I go carpet, tile, couch, I want to go couch, tile, carpet on my way out. And I don't have to pick up that tick.
Right.
Anytime I get to a window, I want to look out a window to reassure that what I'm mapping in my mind in zero visibility correlates with where I am in the structure, because I'm able to look out a window like Absolutely. You did in the back of the structure with a flat roof.
That's right. As long as someone is putting water on that fire, you should take windows as you search. It's going to lift. It's going to lift the smoke and give you or any victim a better chance of survival. And it allows you to take a chance to look out and say, okay, I am where I thought I am. I thought I was on the seaside, and here I am, I'm on the seaside. It's a reaffirmation for you. It should increase your confidence. And that's your secondary egress. Now you're searching along and you have that much more confidence. Like, wow, I'm only 6 feet, I'm only 10 feet, I'm only 12 feet from my last secondary egress. And I know exactly where I am in the building. So absolutely, about taking windows.
You know what?
Breadcrumbs the whole way.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know what I find interesting about this, Danny, is for what have I known you? 14, 15 years, roughly, something like that. You've been saying the exact same thing. So that segues me into right before we were I think we were teaching a gig a few years ago, and you were waiting to see, like, hey man, I'm not sure if I'm retiring or if I'm out. Like we were together right there in the end. And you told me, you said, you know what I want to do? I said, not, and you're a nice guy and humble. So you were like, I don't want to down anybody, but I don't think there's a good search and rescue book out there, and I want to write a book. Oh. So, and I'm going to hold you to that. I told you I was going to hold you to that. Yeah,
I know.
I think you might have had a couple beers or a couple something on, but I think there, and there's tons of other people out there that are, like we said, that are better than what we do on any given day. But I think the way that you word it and the things that you've gone through, I absolutely think that book would be a huge seller. And like you said, Herbie and I, we talked to you that night. And we were like, listen, you need someone to sweep the floor of the day while you're videoing people, searching or doing whatever. We're there, dude. We'll totally help you on that, because I think the information you have and the way you deliver it, I think is extremely smooth. And it's logical, which you don't see a lot of that. You don't see that a lot anywhere.
Sure.
So that was a question. So now you have to answer. So what's up with the book, man?
Do you still have me audio?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, you're
all right.
Voice of an angel.
My AirPods died. The book kind of petered out when I went on disability. and mostly because I know that if you write a book, you're going to have to go on the circuit and do some training, and I feel like guys are going to want to hear it from somebody that's doing it, not somebody that did it. That's where I'm at. I would be like, I'd really like to hear from somebody that did it yesterday, not somebody that did it 4 years ago.
But with
So-
your skill set, and I'm sure I could rally a dozen hard-hitting monsters to do exactly what you say. I'm telling you, this book would be money.
Yeah.
It's so
Tell him, Herbie.
I got to go with the thought process of this. You've probably seen more in your career than 90% of people who are just doing a hay and pallet fire training exercise.
Smoking their helmet up.
So the sheer fact that you're not on the rig right now doesn't mean shit, because you have more knowledge than 90% of people that are listening in, and all I'm doing is regurgitating what you've taught me. And Greg will be the first one to tell you, the day you gave me the Rescue 5 challenge coin, I carry that challenge coin in my pocket every single day because it meant more than any challenge coin I've ever got in my life.
Wait, you got a challenge coin, dude? What's going on? We'll talk about that later.
Exactly.
What's going on with that, bro?
But, and it's not to blow smoke up your ass or anything, but you have knowledge that the generation needs to hear. And like Greg said, you have a way to give it to the masses so they understand it. You're not up there pounding your chest, I'm the fucking man, I did this. You're giving them the data and I've done it, and you're humble enough to say, if it didn't work, this is why it didn't work. So don't do this.
Yeah, and you've told us years ago, man, that you're like, hey man, I appreciate what you guys do. You pull hoses, throw ladders. You're like, I search. That's what I do. So think about that. You've searched every day when you went to work for 14 years. Nobody can beat that. And that's being laid back about it. That's not counting the 2 and 3 jobs that you had in a day. It'll work. I mean, the worst case scenario, it'll sell as good as like some low rent comic book or something. You know what I mean?
So
Yeah.
I buy it.
Hey, so we got a guy who just chimed in, Matt Kelly.
Okay.
He said, sorry, we just got back from a run. Not sure if this was asked, but what type of searches did you usually employ? 2-man anchor searches? Question mark. And how would you search with a new member on your inside team? Because that's going to slow you down in terms of ground covered. Thanks.
Yeah. So I know a lot of truck companies with, their probies. The first couple fires they go to, the probies on the can. And a lot of times they would leave their probies at the door. If it seemed like it was going to be, I might get burned, or this doesn't look good in here, but I got to search it. I know some truck companies that, and there's a good number of them, that would leave their probie at the door. And that would definitely speed up the search, for one thing. But it also, it adds a little bit of security to the guys, because we're taught right in the academy, if you're at the door, you're that guy that banging that tool. Hey, this is the door. This is the way out. That increases confidence in the guys, and the guys can search deeper and further and faster. So regarding the new guy, the difference is in the rescue, the new guy has time in the truck, and he's expected to come in and contribute day one. Day one, he's expected to make a search. As far as the 2-man and the anchor search and all that, it really depends. if you talk like top floor, you got a tenement fire, and you're on the top floor, you might see the top floor guys each searching an apartment independently. So they get to the door, they force the door, they leave a tool at the door, and one guy goes in and searches that entire apartment, and the next guy takes the rabbit tool or the hydraulic forcible entry tool to the next door and forces it, leaves that tool outside the door, and he searches the next apartment. So it really depends on conditions. If conditions warrant that, then you got a 2-man team searching an entire top floor. The worse conditions get, the more basic we have to be as firemen. So if the shit is bad, then you really belong on a wall searching with another fireman at the door saying, boom, 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 this is the door. That's my answer to that.
So I know Rob's chomping at the bit. He has a couple more questions he wants to ask you. That's
Danny.
And I literally, I'm sitting here looking right now, Dan. I got 1, 2, 3, 6 different messages right now saying your knowledge will help others do better. That's one of them. I'll buy the book tomorrow. One guy said, if we're open forum, what the fuck are you waiting for? You're retired. So
that's right.
That's fireman for you right there, man. I love it.
It's you definitely need to put that out because I still remember a conversation you and I had, and it was about abbreviations that people try to change things that have been done forever, and they add a letter here and talk VEIS, VES, and all that other flow path and all that other nonsense. I think you truly need to put that book out, man.
Well, I knew you guys were going to hammer me on it.
You're welcome.
So we'll see where it goes.
Listen, too, Danny, just think about it. That could potentially be like a company officer book across the country because you'll set the standard. And then, some other, not as good looking, but, probably, sharper, hard charger come out and do another book, and you'll set the precedence. Like you said, it's the best form of flattery. You know what I mean? So when you set the standard and then they just keep building on it, I mean, I know you don't look for the glory, man. I know that for a fact. I've known you a long time, but it's it's needed. It's needed.
So before we let Rob jump in with his questions, Devin Pierce just wrote in. He said, would love to read a book on this subject from you, Dan. I'll never forget we hosted an aggressive search class at Old City Hall in West Palm Beach with multiple individuals from different departments. I was guiding one of the floors and watched a 2-person crew cover way more ground with plenty of communications and victims found than all of the 3-person crews that participated. Please write the book. And then after that, he goes, $49.99. Herb, buy it for me.
Was Mr. Pierce, was he one of the instructors with the Proby class for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They saved our ass, just personally.
Yeah, they helped a lot
with the work they did, and
yeah, they helped a lot.
Yeah,
so
came in and jumped in to take a station. That was key.
Honestly, man, it's the 4 of us sitting here. We've all read books that are bullshit in the fire service, to say the least. You're putting out real facts, real knowledge. I think the fire service deserves it, to be quite honest with you.
I think they're in need of it.
Right.
And because right now the culture in the fire service right now, I mean, I hate to say it, it's a bunch of fucking pussies.
Wow.
No, wait, Herbie, can you sugarcoat that a little better than that, please?
Hey,
Wow.
well, before you guys know, I don't sugarcoat anything. We got a bunch of pussies in the fire service right now, so it's needed and it's warranted.
Hey, just think about that. He's in the EOC right now too, and he's saying that.
That's crazy office talk.
Yeah, that's
Hey! I'm getting a little stir crazy here, boys.
touche, Rob.
The water
So
cooler is
what
going
you got
to
for him, Bob?
be crazy.
Shoot off for him.
The water cooler is going to be crazy Monday.
It is gonna be so crazy, Danny. Oh man, Herbie said pussy. All right, so Danny, I got a quick question. I'm gonna be remiss if I don't bring this up on people listening. There's a lot of buzzwords that kind of like take over the fire service every 2-3 years, and you guys mentioned some of them: the VEIS, the flow path, the air tracks, now with search, you got targeted search, oriented search, anchored search, wall search, searchable versus survivable. Let's talk about just searchable and survivable. I know what works for myself and my company. We don't have a rescue per se. We have an ambulance and we have a truck. And when it comes to fire duty, we both do them equally. When we get there, the manpower comes from the ambulance side, and it supplements the fire truck. And they usually end up doing a search of some form. I end up either doing some type of truck work or, believe it or not, extinguishment. These guys know I ride a quint, so I do a little bit of everything. Some days I'm an engine, some days I'm a truck. Most of the time I'm an ambulance.
Ooh.
Hey, Dan, the Quint is not. It's the bastard child of everything.
Killed the fire service.
It's a man killer, manpower killer. Yeah.
You kind of reminded me of it. You reminded me of it earlier, bro. You were talking about depending what needed to be done, you took the assignment, whether you were the first rescue there or there was a truck there before you, or you were searching. That's where we operate on a Quint. If we get there and there's an engine before us, then we're a truck. If we show up first due, then we're an engine. Because we have a 75-foot stick. So it's crazy, but that's not the question. As far as survivable and searchable, I understand sizing up the building, understanding your layouts, knowing your first due, reading the sizing of the building and reading it, identifying smoke conditions. And my search mentality and profile is I'm going to search everything that's searchable. I'm not looking for anything survivable. Survivable is up to God. Searchable is up to me. So if I can get a body in there and occupy that space, I'm going to do it, even if it's for 5 seconds. All right. Again, aggressively intelligent. We're going to get in there as fast as possible, occupy the space, make sure that we can get a quick search done and get the members out. What's your take today, 2020, on the whole survivable space versus searchable space mentality? Like, I'm going to look at that building and tell you, fire out of 2 windows on the Bravo side. I'm riding off the Bravo side. I'm focusing my search on the Alpha side. Okay,
so my hope is that whoever brings water to the fire is going to search the fire area first. I don't know how fire got out that window. I don't know if the window was open or if it's thermal pain and it, the room flashed and then the window failed. I don't know what order that happened in, but I'm going to tell you that my opinion is is not what's going to be searched, but the hierarchy. So the first area I'm going to search is the most exposed survivable area. Most exposed survivable area. So if the room is flashed over and I can get to that door, I'm going to close the door and whoever's in there is a body. If that room hasn't flashed over, that room is tenable. That, a victim on the floor. So I advocate, actually, you get to that fire room, we're first in, cell phones are early, we get early notification now. We get fire is held in check by thermal pane windows. You get in there quick. You get to the fire room. Before you open that nozzle and turn 1700 degrees at the ceiling into 1700 degrees at the floor, I say hold off on the nozzle for 3 seconds. Let the officer get his face on the floor with a flashlight and see if somebody's in the room. That to me, until it flashes over, is the most exposed survivable area. Once it's flashed over, well, then that's the nozzleman's dream. You know, go ahead, have at it. Hook your leg on the door jamb. You got it. I'm going to search the area beyond. So the most exposed survivable area may be the fire area, maybe the area beyond the fire. And then back to safety, back down the line. If you're an engine, you're searching back towards safety and more survivability. As a truck company, you got to get to the fire. Somebody's got to size up the fire. So you have to send somebody, even if it's with 2.5 gallons of water, to the fire. Maybe they can control it with a door. I'll give you an example. We had a 3-story apartment building. Really, it was closed, and it was only occupied by squatters. We had a fire on the 2nd floor. We got in, forced the door to the apartment. I know my chauffeur was going up the fire escape. It had sliding glass doors on the fire escape. So we got into the 1-bedroom. It's a bedroom fire. And I expend my extinguisher on the bed and bureau what's on fire. And I go to hook the door and close the door, and there's no door. So I yell to my officer, "Boss, I got no door here to close." He immediately gets on the radio and says, "Hold the windows. Nobody take any windows."
Wow.
You have to have that communication. So if you're a truck company operating with 2.5 gallons of water, that's all you've got. And you don't want to feed the fire any more than you have to. So can you get to the fire area and isolate it? Okay, that's good. Search the area beyond, because you may never get another chance to if the fire gets away from you. Close a door, get water on the fire. If you're an engine, most exposed survivable area. If you're a truck coming in, and it all depends on what you've got in your department. If you've got an engine that's going to do an aggressive search, the truck should do the floor above, because the engine can cover that fire floor. They should be able to cover that fire floor with 3 guys, a 3-man crew. So the truck should be going to the floor above, room right above the fire, checking for fire and victims, and then searching out from there. The difference between the fire floor and the floor above: fire floor, you're going right to the fire to size up the enemy, see how angry it is. The floor above, you start searching as soon as you open that door, because you don't know where victims are anywhere in that area. You search your way, you go pretty aggressively right to where you know you're over the fire. In our situation, we have an officer, a can man, and an irons guy. So as a can man, I know that I would be going directly over the fire, trying to see if there's fire or victims. And the irons guy would probably be going an opposite search as me. The officer would be guiding the search. So survivable, yeah, I'm all for the most exposed survivable area. Yeah.
The highest priority for search.
I hope that makes sense.
It did make sense. It made sense. The fire room makes sense to me. Getting to the fire room, waiting those 3 seconds before you're putting water on the fire and dropping the thermal layering, that makes sense.
And that
getting
takes
a quick search of that room.
That takes a lot of discipline.
Everything you mentioned takes discipline.
Yeah.
Everything you mentioned.
You
Even
get
the fact you told me you had
the door and tell them not to pull on that bail.
Absolutely. Forget it.
I'm a big fan of that too. Like you said, just let it ride for a second. Let people get in their position. Sometimes it's as simple as taking a peek in that room. We're good. Pull out, knock the fire down instead of smoking everybody. You know what I mean?
You get your face on that ground, on the ground in that fire room, and you can tell the guy, hey, it's a bureau and a closet on the right. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
The greatest visibility in that fire floor is in the fire area.
Yeah.
Especially if somebody takes a window for you. You got a chauffeur that can put it in pumps and then go take a window for you. Oh my goodness. It's an engine man's dream. So
taking so many notes.
I've been getting this pounded in my head for 14 years, dude. I got all this to memory.
Hey, Rob. The best thing I can tell you is meet up with Dan one day at the bar
Mhm.
give them a few gentleman jacks, and before you know it, school is in session,
And he's rubbing your shoulders.
dude, hey,
Just make sure.
hey,
I'm in.
Just make
Hey.
sure I got both hands on your shoulders, bro.
exactly.
You
Hey,
have me at shoulders, bro.
hey, I
Look
can honestly
prostrate.
tell you, Rob, that there's not too many people in the world that I've literally just shut up and didn't say a word. He takes the room, and everybody from the most junior guy to the most senior guy that was there, everyone shut up and just listened because he's seen it, he's done it, and he articulates the stories to make you understand it. And he never will tell you, hey, I'm better than you or anything like that. I learned more in the 5 days that I was with him teaching in the hotel lobby, drinking beers, eating pizza. That was where literally, whether you call the table, you whatever you want to call it, for me, and I've told Greg, I've never got a chance to tell Dan this to his face. It literally changed everything on how I was an officer, and I've told Greg this numerous times. That conversations that I've had with him at that particular point changed everything that I do as a company officer. He doesn't make you feel like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. He gives you his input on it, and you sit there and you just listen. And it's kind of what we preached last podcast about, hey, listening to the other people and learning and just being a student of the craft. And for me, like I said, I mean, I haven't had the chance to tell Dan, but Dan truly in my career has impacted me more than he'll probably ever realize. Still to this day, I walk around with the challenge coin that they gave me. And it's more important for me because I still believe in the whole challenge coin principles. I still believe in all of it.
It's the pride, man.
I appreciate that, Herb. I appreciate
it. And Dan, this is not blowing smoke up your ass by any means. And Greg will vouch for me 100%. You did more for me in the 5 days that I was with you. Just listening to you talking about some of your company officers and all that, than any conferences I went to, anything. And it was all about the delivery, and it was all about how you delivered the information to me. And honestly, and Greg will tell you, I literally came back and I was like, man, fucking Dan Barron's a man. I could not say enough good things about you.
I appreciate it.
I smell a book in the future is what I'm hearing right now.
But the reality is that there's certain people that you meet throughout your career that truly touch you. And I can honestly say that you were one of those people for me. And I look up to Greg, and Greg looks up to you. And it was one of those things where I sat there and you didn't brag about anything. You weren't boasting about anything. Your passion was giving knowledge to people who wanted to hear it. And that meant more to me than anything in the world, honestly. So I can't speak for the other two guys, but I can tell you for me, I thank you for everything you did in my career. You did more for me than you'll ever know.
Oh, thanks, Herb. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Let me add a quick story real quick. So I was in FDIC probably about the second or third year after I knew Dan, whatever. So somewhere within 4 years. We're in this class, and I'm not going to say what class we were in. It was a search class. but I'm not going to say who it was or whatever, because I don't know where the dude is now. He might be unbelievable, but you could tell this was his first run at it. So I'm sitting in there and I'm by myself, and I'm going to meet up with Dan later on that evening at Cladd's. We're going to drink some beers. We're going to talk some smack, whatever.
I don't believe it.
No, you were going to talk smack, I swear. So we're in the class, and unfortunately, I mean, this guy, he had a good name of the class, and it kind of brought everybody in. And I want to say, like, within the first 20 minutes, I want to say 40 people got up and walked out. And I was like, good God, this is horrible. Well, when I went out into the hallway, I'm hanging out, and I'm like, all right, do I wait or do I just blow this last class off? Well, I look over, Dan Barron was standing right there. He also walked out of the class. So we said, all right, let's blow this joint. Let's go grab something to eat, grab a drink real quick, and we'll come back for our final last class. Well, we ended up staying in the bar. And it wasn't Cladd's, it was something else, but we stayed in the bar till probably 10 o'clock at night, talking rescue and stuff like that. Talking like search and rescue. And it was better than any class that I paid for at FDIC for search and rescue since I've been there. So a couple years later, when you and I talking, whatever, teaching, doing whatever, when you said, hey man, I really, and you were dead set, like serious about it, like, hey man, I need to write a book about search because there's just not one out there that does it right. That was years ago. They still don't have that book. It's still not written. And you're the guy. Now, I know we're going to beat you up on it a little bit. I know you're going to go back and beat yourself up more than we are. But that's the truth, man. I mean, like I said, any help you need from NRC or even our department. I think half our department loves everything you've done, and you've changed the culture in our department. I feel we were pretty good, but when you came in, we realized we might have been average. So that's where I'm at with that.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks.
We gotta get Dan a ghostwriter. He needs to get a ghostwriter. He can't be writing this entire book by himself. That man's retired. His back hurts. He's all right.
Right,
then we can do
playing golf. I'm on the boat.
Right? This guy's trying to get you to work again.
Well, then we can do a Spanish version.
I got you, brother.
And Roberto Ramirez can take that to my brothers in this.
I will get that down in Miami.
No, but seriously,
all over South America. Fuck out of here.
I would like to see that. And Herbie and I, we offered that years ago that we would help you whatever you needed. And I thought it was cool that you said you wanted to go back to the departments you taught at and get those people, get their pictures, and put the book together. And I think it would be a huge seller. I think you would surprise yourself, man, because trust me, A, there's not too many people that can tolerate me for 15 years, and you have. B, when I start talking to people and we get a little angry and we start talking about stuff, but you and I have always been on the same page. So something is not right with you or me or both, but we're on the same page. So you should definitely consider it again. And that's all I got to say about that. I do have one more question for you. I just want to get a quick, short answer from you.
Well, I think Dan might have paused out. I think his up north Wi-Fi might have fucking paused on us.
It looks like he's just fell asleep for.
Well, you were talking for like 30 minutes about his book.
Hey, realistically,
I love you.
Hey, he is a little older, so he might have fell asleep. Hey, so all joking aside, this is a perfect time to break into it. I know I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, and just so you guys understand, this is huge for us. I can speak for Greg. I can speak for Rob. We did not expect the positive feedback that we were getting from this. This has turned into something that – honestly, we were not expecting. Rob is going to be on every podcast with us. And this is nothing more than a bunch of firemen, a bunch of friends, talking to some other people that enjoy the craft and truly believe in the brotherhood like we do and want to give back. So with that being said, I truly want to thank every single person that has chimed in and has given us a positive feedback. The three of us have literally text each other all the time with all the feedback we've got, and it has been fucking phenomenal.
Yeah,
So
I couldn't agree more.
And with that being said, I mean, honestly, Rob, we appreciate you agreeing to do this with us. It's
Dude.
It's one of those things where you have a few beers, you're like, hey, you know what? This is what we're gonna do, and it kind of just ran with it.
I think that's how everything you and I have accomplished. Sitting down, couple beers, things start happening, and you're like, all right, looks like it's working.
Exactly.
Go from there.
Dudes, I couldn't be happier to be here.
It looks like Dan Barron might be trying to come back in.
Hey, before he gets on, Herbie, you see this hat right here? I want to give a little shout out to the Southside Fire Factory at Lexington County, South Carolina. A bunch of good dudes. Didn't know much about those guys till we went up there, and every day we were there teaching a class, they were burning something and they were doing it good. So I appreciate that. There he is.
Yeah, did I mention I'm in rural Pennsylvania?
Bro, you got to figure this out.
Sorry, Rob.
That's amazing.
Hey, so the feedback from this show has been fucking awesome, Dan.
Okay.
I misspoke earlier. At our peak, we had 1,412 people listening in at one time. So it's been awesome. And hey, Greg, you got anything else for Dan? Or
Hey, I just wanted to ask one more question, Dan, real quick, and make it a quick, short answer. I don't care if it's one or two, but from a firefighter with the experience that you have riding a prestigious rescue company in New York, in your opinion, what makes a good leader or boss? Like what do you look for? Like when someone comes in right off the get-go, you just, that guy's good. I know that.
Yeah. Consistency. One thing, that's the prime thing is consistency. If this guy's uptight, let him be uptight all the time. Or if he's pissed off or whatever, consistency I think is one of the biggest things. You don't want to go to work and have the guys down on the apparatus floor thinking, which officer is going to show up today. So I think consistency is a big thing.
Perfect.
Because I can take you. If you're a screamer at fires, I can take you. Mm-hmm. But that's got to be the way that you are. That's the biggest thing. Consistency.
Perfect.
I couldn't agree more. That's huge. 98.6 degrees.
hey,
not too hot, not too cold.
Yep.
Hey, Dan. So I got a. So we put it out on Instagram. Ask any questions to you. So one of the guys asked, "Can you ask Dan why Rescue Company 5 was called the Boomerang?"
Sure. We have the Verrazano Bridge, which is a 2-mile stretch. It's right where the New York Marathon starts. That's it, to give you some idea of where it is. And we get a lot of runs to Brooklyn where we go out of quarters, onto the highway, over the bridge, off the exit ramp, on the on ramp, back on the bridge, back to the off ramp, and back to quarters. That's just the nature of the beast. The boomerang. Boomerang. Hey, listen, it's been an honor to be here with you guys. You guys are always gentlemen, and I appreciate everything that you do. The podcast is great. Rob, you were fantastic
Thanks, man.
on your podcast, and I know you guys are doing great things. I know that you are. So God bless you, and I really appreciate you having me on.
You've always been involved with this for a long time, man, since we started training with you and you kind of showed us a couple little tips. You've always been involved, man. So we knew you were one of our first guests. I just made sure you were going to answer my phone call, like, always ducking my calls,
Hey, Rob, you got anything for Dan before we wrap out of this?
Just very nice to finally meet you, bro. I've heard so much about you. These guys couldn't talk better about you. It's been a blast. Enjoyed talking to you. Look forward to working with you. I look forward to talking to you more. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy, brother. God bless.
Thanks, Rob. Takes care of your crew, brother.
Will do, bro.
Hey, Dan, all joking aside, we appreciate you. We look forward to the book. And honestly, I speak for myself and Greg. We cannot thank you more for what you have done for us.
Okay, brother.
So
I'm just passing on information, brother.
Hey,
appreciate it.
We appreciate it more than you ever know, and hopefully one day we can just give back the way you're giving back to us and into the community. So, with that said, this is Train to Live podcast number 4. We're out.
That was fun.
Nice.